Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Prof. How are you?
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening, Prof.
Please, how
Prof,
is
good
it?
evening.
I believe everybody is doing great.
God has been good. Yourself?
Oh, by grace, I'm also managing. I could,
Bless God.
yeah. So, we are about to start a pre-intervention session, and then I believe everybody is set for the journey. I hope you
Oh,
have your.
we are.
Shall we pray? Father, in the name of Jesus, we thank you so much for bringing us together as a family this day. We pray and to take absolute control. Grant us your divine grace and mercies. In Jesus' name we pray with thanksgiving. Amen. So when it comes to strategic case study, right? Before the pre-scene is released, there are some particular areas that as students you need to know. Okay, so it doesn't matter whether there's a pre-scene or not. These areas you must know them. And remember, the paper, the examiner has always complained about what? About the application of the strategic models. Students lacking enough, okay, in preparation. Okay, so there are particular areas that students do not prepare well, and it's causing them a lot of harm. And also, there are some particular areas too that students do not do well at all. Okay, my focus in this pre-intervention is to focus on 3 key areas. Okay, let's say 4, because apart from the application of the strategic models that we are going to look at, we are also going to look at specific ways we have to answer strategic case study questions that will fetch us the maximum marks. And since there's a release of a new syllabus, you should always know that anytime new syllabus is released, okay, the very night before the new syllabus, it will look like a preliminary, right? It's like a prelims or a prototype of the paper you are going to have next night. So the format will look somewhat the same, right? So I will be sharing what has changed in the new syllabus compared to the old one, right? And then we should know some things that were clearly stated in the new syllabus, but in the old syllabus, they were under some topics. That makes those things very, very important, right? So once you know these things, I could proudly say that you are on top of your game, right? Because those are the things that make these things very important. I hope that is okay. So we all know that the primary study text is the ICA manual, okay? Those are the things that we have to what? We have to know and understand very well, right? So though this is strategic case study, we are not covering everything. Moreover, the hours we have at our disposal is very small, right? So what we are going to focus on are the expected areas that um, we have to make sure that we are very strong at. When we are strong at these areas, trust me, there's no case study exam that we will go and we will struggle, right? Because those areas we are going to master will tell us that at least you have made the maximum amount of marks that you know you can easily succeed in those areas, right? So that is the main thing we will be talking about today. That's the main thing we'll be talking about today. So I will do a little preliminary study of the whole syllabus and particular areas that we have to understand, right? So if we understand those areas, I think we should obviously be fine, right? So those are some areas that you should understand. Now, you realize that case study is a paper that people fail a lot. And there's a reason why people fail case study, right? It is not necessarily about the knowledge, right? But the application of the knowledge. If you even look at the examiner's, what do we call it? The examiner's report every time, you realize that there's always an issue with how students apply, how students apply, how students apply. That means that there's a big issue, okay? And one thing I want you guys to notice that this time, that will be no more. Is that okay? We are going to learn some set of strategies that are going to make us successful no matter what. What did I say? I said we are going to what? What did I
Learn
say?
some strategies that is going to get us through no matter what.
Yeah, no matter what, because those are the things that when we know, we can proudly say that this area that we are preparing is going to be what? An area which is what? A sure banker for us. Okay. So whether you are not well prepared or you are well prepared, these are areas you cannot ignore, right? So what are these areas? One, business strategy analysis. Okay, so first of all, preparing a strategic analysis, which we call your what? Your position appraisal. Your position appraisal always ends with what? A SWOT analysis. So your environmental analysis and internal
Bro,
analysis.
please, are you sharing your screen? Because we
No,
can
I
see.
haven't yet shared.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'm trying. Okay, so business strategy analysis, whether you like it or not, most of the time, if you look at most of the papers that have come, you realize that this area usually pops up between 10 and 20 marks most of the time, right? Let's just say 20 marks. If you look at the syllabus breakdown, you are going to see that what there are particular areas that as a student, you don't have to do, you don't have to play with at all. So whether there's pre-seen or not, that's the problem I've seen students have. All they think about is pre-scene, pre-scene, pre-scene. But how prepared are you even before the release of the pre-scene? Because everything you are going to get in the unseen information, right? Unseen information still relies on what? Your same information. And these are the things that as a student, you must make sure that you master, whether there's pre-scene or no pre-scene. Does that make sense? I'm actually trying to share a particular document, but that document is not sharing. I don't know. The network is very bad, but let's see how we can manage. So if you can see my screen, then you just give me the go ahead, all right? So as I was telling you, there are some particular areas that as a student you have to try and master. So let's see. Let's try see how best. Today, what is wrong? Oh, I don't like that. Okay, but no problem. If you can see my screen, you tell me. No? Okay. Okay. Is my screen visible? I believe my screen is visible now, right?
Yes, please.
Okay. Nicely said. Okay. So when it comes to strategic case study, there are particular areas that you have to master, right? So when we look at the examiner's marking scheme itself, right? Every time the examiner's report tells us that there are some things which have been seen to be what? The student's weaknesses. Okay, I don't know whether students do not spend time looking at these areas, but once you prepare or you spend time looking at these areas, I'm not sure you are going to have what, any problem. You get the idea? Because anytime you take a paper, you should know what some of these problems. What were the problems that students were facing last night? So that you what? You use that to prepare very well. So what are the major issues that we see in the examiner's report? One, the first one is inadequate preparation. Okay. And this inadequate preparation the man is talking about is basically about what? Non-assimilation of the textbook's content, right? Non-assimilation of the text content and context, right? Sometimes you realize that a lot of time students have not prepared well for the paper, right? Because they say, oh, the book is too big. Okay, there's a strategic way you can go about that, no doubt, right? Two, it says deviation, right? This is one of, I should have even started with this, right? They are asking about one thing, and the student ends up doing another thing, right? So when it comes to deviation, that is also a key issue, right? People deviating from what is expected. So deviation is one of the key problems why people fail case study. Because you see, somebody will go and write case study and the thing will come. He has 26% out of 100. So 26 out of 100. Actually asking the question, what at all could make you get 26 out of 100 marks? That means there were some things you deviated from. Do you understand? Okay. Now, apart from this one, even inadequate preparation can be broken into many points. The next area I will talk about is poor use of grammar, right? So if you read all the papers, poor use of grammar. So very big issue where people write English anyhow. Then finally, we can talk about handwriting, right? So apart from the knowledge itself, so these are some of the issues that you mostly face, right? So handwriting, maybe spacing in your handwriting, the typography, how your handwriting itself looks, right? How small the size, right? How small or big it is, and link writing. Okay, people who like to write like doctors. Okay, these are some of the things that you are mostly going to be what seeing when it comes to what the reason why people fail case study. But the best thing, or what I want to solve today, is the issue of deviation, so that no matter what happens, you are not going to deviate, because case study is such that it is an open paper, right? Once you say something and it makes sense, they are supposed to give you, but sometimes students deviate. That is because they do not understand the models in question. That means they do not what? Understand the models in question. Are we okay? So if you do not understand the models, you always deviate. Do you understand? If you do not understand the models, you are always going to what? Going to deviate. So then, these are some of the issues that you will have. Now, the next thing I'm going to talk about is how to tackle questions, right? It's how to what? Tackle questions. Now, when it comes to strategic case study, right? There are essay questions, okay? Essay questions, and there are going to be some computational questions, right? They're computational, let's call them analytical, right? Or we can call them financial decision-making models, right? Financial decision-making. I like it this way. That way, you can consolidate all the models and not look at them in isolation. So when it comes to essay questions, there are even 3 types of questions which we should be expecting. The first type is what we call answer in the scenario type of questions, right? Answer in the scenario type of questions, okay? The second type of questions we should be expecting, we know is what? What do you think type of question? So with answer in the scenario, the answer that you are looking for is in the scenario. They've stated something in the case, right? Something is stated in the case, and then you are now going to find it. It's already there, right? Maybe you can build upon that point or whatsoever. Then we have what do you think type of question, right? And this type of question is where something may have been stated or not stated, but they are going to ask you to suggest or recommend. Okay, suggest or recommend something that will suit the company. I get it. So this one, they are asking based on your opinion. Okay, so this one is opinionated. Based on your opinion, what would be the most appropriate strategy? Okay, but then though it's on opinion, you are going to look for some factors that proves that this is the most appropriate strategy for this guy. So for instance, a typical example with what do you think type of question will be where you are supposed to what? Select between two strategies, right? They'll tell you that what do you think should be the appropriate growth strategy for the company? So anytime they ask you this sort of things, especially regarding strategies, you must state all of them. Okay, state all of them, weigh their pros and cons. That's how we go about it, right? And then select the most suitable. It always works like this, right? Because they give you marks for all this, and then all fits into the mark. Okay, that is how it works all the time. That is how it works. So remember this. Okay, then there's another one where you are expected to use the suitability, feasibility, acceptability approach. Okay, it also falls under what do you think, right? Type of questions where you recommend or suggest. Then there's a last type of question which I want students to know about, which is where your feelings are coming from. That is the theory type questions, right? The theory related or the theory type questions. Now, with the theory type questions or knowledge type questions, right? This type of questions is one of the reasons why people fail. And why is that the case? If you know, you know. If you don't know, you don't know. Do you understand? So these are some of the issues that we mostly have to look at. I hope that is okay. So what are we going to now dive into? Let's look at the analysis or the approach that we need to tackle this kind of questions, right? Whether essay type questions or computational questions, then we'll dive into the specific areas and how to tackle questions one after the other. I would expect you to get your pen and then your notebook or your notepad and just prepare yourself for what we are about to do, right? So I hope by now you have all written the question, the type of questions down. Have you? Have you written them down?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Now, let's dive into approaching essay questions, right? Approaching essay questions. Now, essay questions are in many forms, right? So that's basically theory-related questions where it comes from the case. And we already know the three types of questions we are most likely going to be facing, right? But the first one are the long-form questions, right? So the long-form type of questions are the ones that sort of make reference to something from the case before they ask you a question, right? So this one makes some sort of reference from the case. Maybe based on the discussion that was done by the board of directors. Are you getting it? So and so and so and so is supposed to be done. Maybe the director suggested some appropriate form of organizational structure somewhere in the case, right? But you go and now they make reference to the case. Are you getting it? Before they now come and ask you the question. So what this type of question where we make reference, where are we going to put it? Are we going to put it at answer in the scenario type of question? What do you think type of question or theory? Which is the most appropriate here?
Answer in the
The scenario.
So it can fit all of them. It can fit all of them. For instance, in a the examiner said in the pre-scene that the managing director suggested what? Some organizational structure which will bring coordination among teams and also among what? The functional areas. I get it. And they came to ask you, what does that organizational structure signify, right? That means what kind of question are they asking? They've given you the features of the organizational structure they are looking for already. So now you have to name it based on the features this guy suggested, right? Yeah, so you could say this is sort of an answer in the scenario. Are you getting it? Then they come and ask you, what are the criticisms of that organizational structure, right? So you see, this part is not in the scenario, but then they're asking you, okay, based on what you think, is this organizational structure good or bad? Okay, so this one, I think people usually do not answer case study questions flexibly. It should be flexible. Sometimes you chip in your own business acumen. This is what we want, right? Your own business. In my experience, you should be writing some of those things. In my opinion, right? Yes, if you write some of these things, it tells them that you are answering the question from your own industry analysis. You are answering it as if you are an expert. That's what we want to see, right? So we are saying that yes, these are some things that students usually ignore, right? That is why they fail. So don't always think about, knowledge. No. Build yourself first. When you know how to approach, okay? If you know how to what? Answer questions, knowledge becomes what? Secondary. Remember this. So we are saying that, okay, long form questions, then we have what? Short form questions. Okay, so the short form questions are mostly they will be theory. Okay, there will be theory, or sometimes they can also make reference, but very short questions. So they could be theory, or they could be what do you think type of question, right? So suggest appropriate strategies for ABC, right? So that one they've just brought it is short form or long form questions. And it doesn't really matter which one they are asking you. So far as you know exactly what to use, then you should be fine, right? So the very first thing I want to talk about is approaching essay questions. When you're approaching essay questions, right? One thing I see students do not do is organization of points. Okay. So you've gone to the exam. Yes, you've done all your analysis, but you don't know how the questions are going to come. Now you go and they ask you a specific question. Now, if you know you do not know how to go about it, don't worry. Just go to the back, or even if it's the same question, right? So you can just give what? Maybe some with your pencil, just list the points, okay? Just list your points, but do not explain them. So you can list them in bullets, okay? List all your points. Then after you list all your points, then you know which ones you can explain. You can explain well. Do you understand? Then you start expanding them. This is the best way. So me, usually during my 50 minutes reading time, that's what I do. I answer all the questions that I can with my pencil, just pinpointing them. I get to the point. So when they say start work, all I go and do is just go and expand my point. But you see, people will be reading questions. No, you don't do that. You do not read questions or the unseen now. No. Solve the case, solve the questions as if you haven't read anything. So first, it's knowledge that you are dropping. Just drop your knowledge. Don't apply to anything. So for instance, you go and they ask you that, what are the EPRG, okay? EPRG orientations, right? That the customer, the company can adopt. So you go, you see something like this. Don't go and read the case to know what type they are adopting. You just list the EPRG framework, you know, right? You know ethnocentrism. You know polycentrism. You know regiocentrism. You know geocentrism, right? So already you have listed. You haven't looked at the scenario yet, but yes, pour for them. And you know why you are doing this? This one is trying to help you organize your points, right? Because at any point in time, if a student is going to deviate, then it's because there's chaos in the way you are going to answer the questions. But if you have a clear framework, right, this will rather make you go fast. When you at least break down within that 50 minutes reading time, anything you see, you just write with your pencil, you can annotate, right? You can annotate by the question. You just scribble some points there, move to the next one, scribble some points there. And that's all you'll be doing throughout your 50 minutes reading time. Now, once you have been able to do this, what you are trying to do is you are trying to activate the brain, telling the brain that, okay, these are the issues that I need. So step one, ethnocentrism. to this, that. Immediately they say start work, you are now going to now read the unseen information, right? You're not going to read the unseen info and ask yourself, how does it link to the pre-seen? Because definitely unseen is no new information. It throws light, it's a throwback. It's like events after reporting date. It gives evidence of conditions that existed in the pre-seen. So if in the pre-seen, they tell you that, oh, the company wants to go for a strategic alliance with company so and so, then you see that in the unseen, they are now telling you that, oh, they have decided to merge, I guess, with AAB hotels, or they have decided to acquire a new company. And that tells you that, okay, the information that you had here is the same information that they are trying to draw you on. And you know why I want you to be looking at, asking yourself how the pre-seen links to the unseen. For instance, in some diets, okay, where they will require some particular calculations, like a cash flow forecast. Okay, the first time a cash flow forecast came, a lot of students deviated. Why? Because the growth rate in the revenue, which we are going to use as a model growth, right, G, was provided in the pre-seen. Okay, while the other details were provided in the unseen. So the growth, that's the financial statement you are going to model, okay, get the growth from, and then the new financial statement, which you are supposed to use, was now given in the unseen. So yes, you would have read it from home. You would have read this from home before coming to the exam. But then if you have an appropriate digest, right? An appropriate digest of the scenario in question, then you shouldn't have a problem. Do you understand? Because already you know how this links to the pre-seen and how this links to the unseen, right? That's the first things we are talking about. Now, let's come to paragraphing. In case study, okay, in case study, how do we build? So there are two approaches, okay? Either you want to go with the paragraph technique, okay? Or you want to go with the bullet points technique. Now, there's a specific amount of words that usually to the human eye, it is difficult to assimilate. Usually, if you have, let's look at this. If you have paragraphs that look like this, okay? Let's say this is a paragraph, right? Which looks like this. And a paragraph which looks like this. Which looks easy on the eye? Please feel free. It's an interactive session. We are learning. Which one looks easy on the eye? It's the same paragraph.
The last one.
It's the same thing. But which one looks easy on the eye?
The first one.
The first one.
Second
Why?
The big one.
No, which one is it easy to read? I mean, which one is it easy to read? Like, if you just see it, you can see the points
So
that
the
are
first one.
The first one.
And why? Because this one at least tells us, okay, this one, most of the time, remember, when I'm answering questions, I always use what? P. Okay, most of you who are my students, you know, always we use P or P in answering questions, right? Which is what? The point. The point is mostly the heading, like what you want to talk about, right? Then you have what? E being what? Explanation, not so.
Explanation.
Explanation. The explanation is like the theory around it, not so. And then finally, what? Evidence.
Evidence.
And evidence is what? Application to the case. From the case, what information, right? What conclusion can you draw? Now, this is the approach we expect you to use. So assuming you decide to use paragraphs like this, right? What I would do is that after I take my point, right? Maybe the heading, let's say you are talking about money market hedging, right? It doesn't mean it has to be big like this, money market hedging. You underline it nicely. This point or this one should talk about the explanation, right? So you explain what is money market hedge, okay? So that's the first thing you do. The next paragraph, right? Which it doesn't really mean it has to be a paragraph. The next sentence, it may be this way, sentences, I'm just saying after you explain, sometimes you can provide some examples in here, which tells you that this guy has practical knowledge about this. Then you come to what? Evidence. So evidence from the case is that, okay, based on what they've given you, so it's either evidence or application. Based on what they've given me, what is the case asking for? The case is asking how the company can apply money market hedging. Another student will just damn straight and say, the company can apply money market hedging in this way. No, don't do that. Don't do that, because there's a specific thing they are looking for, right? So first of all, tell us what money market hedging involves. And the next thing is from the case, I think that the company has what? Maybe some what? Dollars, right? Are you getting? They have some Ghana cedis, which they want to which they have to convert into what? A dollar account. And then they're expecting some receipt from a customer, not to in the next 3 months, right? So based on this, you can use it to explain that this is how a money market hedge will apply in this scenario. So you see what you are doing is actually applying to what you have been given in the scenario. Then when you finish, maybe they'll ask you that, okay, do you think money market is good compared to maybe the forward contract or something, right? In conclusion, so your conclusion will tell you which one is the appropriate one, okay? And thereby, you can even go forward and make a recommendation that management should do this and that and that. See, a lot of students usually fail to do recommendations, especially when it comes to performance, something like you using what? The balance scorecard, or you using maybe ratios. I always see people's analysis and there's no recommendation. At case study level, why would you do ratios? You are doing ratios to assess performance of the entity and see how it fits into its strategy, its growth strategy, its analysis, right? Its risk. Okay, so you are doing all these things and you should know why they are asking you. For instance, if the company is going for finance, they can ask you to do some ratios. Maybe the bank will give some specific ratios, which are important. That means there's always an end result or some objective which you are supposed to do, right? But if I combine all into a paragraph like this, trust me, sometimes it's difficult to read. And assuming there are about 10 of these paragraphs, right? It doesn't, for me, I'm speaking, it doesn't speak well of you, okay? So it is better you start breaking your, if you want to go paragraph way, fine, okay? Because with the human eye, when you mostly see anything beyond 75 words, okay, usually marking, when you are marking, it looks quite difficult to read unless you have the time, right? But to make everything easier, at least when you stick with a paragraph like this, about 75 words, if you are not writing plenty, it looks nice, right? To the eye. So that is one thing you can adopt. You can adopt your paragraphing. So this is just one point you want to talk about, right? Your paragraphing can look nice like this, right? You break your paragraph into sub paragraphs, right? Do you get it? Did it make sense? Did it make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
instead
yes,
of
sir.
using this very big paragraph you have there, instead of using this very big paragraph you have there, doing this speaks well of you. It's better, at least you organize your points in some particular way than just slumping everything into one big chunk of paragraph, which is even assuming, look, this paragraph alone is 240 words, right? It's too much. Then you go to another point and it's even bigger than this one, almost one page. No. Don't do that. But I'll rather you break it down, okay, when you can use bullet points to illustrate it as well. Okay, that is it. Then the next technique I want to talk about is the bullet, okay, is the bullet point approach. Okay, the bullet point technique. Now, the bullet point technique, how does it work? How does the bullet point technique work? How does the bullet point technique work? So with the bullet point technique, it works like this. So make each sentence a bullet. That's all. Okay, make each sentence a bullet point. Okay, so instead of clumping everything together, each sentence you write, you make it a bullet. So let's say I was talking about maybe political factors, right? Political factors. And under political factors, under pestle, I say what? Government policy to clamp down I get on harmful mineral operations, right? Mineral operations. This is a particular case, GGOH, a hotel, right? Which had most of its customers as this Galamsey operators, right? So assuming I have this, look at how I'll go about it. I'll use bullet points to illustrate my whole paragraph. So maybe you say what? Government policy to clamp down on maybe mining, I get in it, harmful mining operations will what? Will help maybe in the destruction of what? In the destruction of maybe water bodies, also water bodies, and then what? And reduce the effects of what? Illegal mining also. Are you getting it? But on the other hand, or contrarily, also, the company will also lose what? Will also lose its significant what? Significant customers, as they contribute a huge maybe aspect of the company's to the company's occupancy rates, and thereby increasing its what? Revenue. Do you get the idea? Then you bring another bullet point which talks about something else, right? That because of this, right, the company's ROCE seems to have what? Reduced by what? 20%. Are you getting it? Meaning the ROCE used to be 40%, signifying that the company made what? 40 pesos for every 1 CD generated, but now it's 20 pesos for every 1 CD generated, signifying that what? The policy to clamp down on the harmful resources are what? Reducing the company's what? Revenue. Thereby, this what? Constitutes what? A threat, because this leads to a reduction in profitability. And thereby this constitutes what? A threat to what? To the company's, I get it, profitability, or the threat to the company's existence, or a threat. I get it. So the whole thing is that no matter the analysis you are doing, if you are doing external analysis, for instance, then you are looking for what? Opportunity, or you are looking for threat. And now ICA mostly likes to bring questions in this way, right? Where they are just going to center on one area, whether threats or whether opportunity. Okay, so they'll tell you that, okay, using PESTEL, what are the particular areas the company should focus on if he wants to achieve some specific objectives? Using 5 forces analysis, what are the particular areas the company should what? Should look out for to not what? Be able to settle its objectives or whatnot, right? So these things are actually very, very important for you to what? Know and understand. But I hope the point I'm making is clear. Are you learning some of these things?
So yes, we are picking it up.
Yeah, so instead of clumping all this into a paragraph, what do? You rather, and you see it looks nice, doesn't it? Oh, tell me.
Yes. And easy to mark.
Yes, of course. So you are making the journey easier for the examiner. So instead of putting everything into one paragraph, you break the paragraph into bullet points. So each sentence is organized into a nice bullet point, right? So that is my first point. Maybe the next one will be what? Increase in exchange rates, or maybe I can call here I, not so. The next one is II, okay? Please, you see there's a margin here, please do not write. I see some people write the numbering in the margin, like I. Don't do this, right? It's supposed to be in the margin. You are not supposed to write in the margin, please. Is that okay? Just write everything inside. So let's say this is the first one, I, right? You've done this, you come to II. So II was what? Increase, or we could say what? The depreciation of the CD, right? So depreciation of the CD, I get it, against the dollar. Okay, so I'm just under political factors. So I have said this, right? The same way I will start and talk about the same thing. Again, just use bullet points instead of clumping everything into what? A single paragraph. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Now, Any question about the two approaches? The paragraph style, where you have to break your paragraph into bits, at least 3, right? One covering your point, one covering your explanation, one covering your point from the case or your evidence, and one covering your conclusion or recommendation, right? Then we have the type where you can mix everything up all right? But you follow a systematic way by making everything a bullet point. Are you getting it? That is it. Is it
Thank you.
clear?
Yes, sir.
I hope don't just listen. No. Some of these things make notes because on the DD, it's actually going to help you out. I hope that is okay.
So please, you're supposed to stick to one particular way. If it is bullet,
It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. Okay, you can. It doesn't really matter, right? But it is better you adopt one style throughout so that your paper looks well organized. Makes sense?
yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, any question? Any question? Any question before we go to the next session? I hope you are learning these exam techniques. They are important too. Please don't take them for granted though, because they are very important. Any question? Question time before we move to the next area.
Sir, you suggested that normally we have to give a conclusion on some of the, especially when it comes to the analysis.
Yeah.
If you can elaborate on that.
Oh, so when it comes to analysis, your conclusion is quite subjective. That's why I didn't talk about it. As a student, you decide how you want to conclude. Do you understand? So, for instance, if maybe you are dealing with an issue of pestle, the conclusion is always whether that thing is what? It's a threat. You can see from here, right? It's a threat or is what? An opportunity. If you are doing 5 forces, whether that thing is a threat or what? It's an opportunity, right? So these are things that you need to take very, very what? Very, very important. Is that okay? Do you understand? Do you understand? Can we move?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Yes, please.
Okay, that is fine. So the next thing I want to talk about is how to approach environmental analysis questions. Okay, how do we approach environmental analysis questions? So when it comes to analysis, let's break down the things we need to know. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is what? Environmental analysis. So when ICA talks about environmental analysis, they are talking about the general and the global environment. Okay, so here the particular models that you're expected to know is what? PESTEL, okay, which is the macro environment analysis, and the Porter's diamond, right? Okay, these are the models that you need to understand here. Then we come to what? The competitive environment. So the competitive environment and your markets, right? So there are some particular models that are very important here. The most important model here is the Porter's 5 forces, right? Is the Porter's 5 forces. And the Porter's 5 forces is the most important model. But apart from that, you are going to also analyze your market. So analyzing your market, that means you need to know competitor analysis, okay? Like competitor response profiles, who are your competitors, what are their strategies. You need to understand customer needs, right? So customer needs could also go with marketing, right? Remember, some of the things you do, they are everywhere. Something like marketing, from your analysis down to your implementation stage, you can never ignore marketing. So something like the 4 Ps, even when you are analyzing what your industry, they become very important, right? Another thing I'll talk about is what? The market analysis using the BCG matrix. The BCG is a strategic portfolio model, right? But you can use it to analyze your market as to which products are doing well and which ones are not doing well, right? Based on what? Your life cycle. So we can look at also the industry or what? The product life cycle, right? The industry of the product what? Life cycle. Okay, so these are areas that when we talk about when we talk about analysis, or you are looking at, right? I hope you are writing them down. We are moving to the third area. And we are going to dive into how to answer questions. I'm not really going to focus when it comes here. I'm not going to focus on the knowledge, but I'm going to give you the approach to answer questions, no matter the type of question that comes. So far as you know the model, okay, some people only know the theory. How then can you make a meaningful interpretation of these models? Does that make sense? Have you written it? Can we go down?
Yes, Prof.
So the next area of importance and analysis, the next type of analysis you should be expecting is stakeholder analysis, right? So with stakeholder analysis, most of the time they are going to ask you some stakeholder models. So the key one is the Mendeley matrix, okay? So Mendeley matrix, and the Mendeley matrix is the interest power matrix, right? Where you rank stakeholders based on interest and power. And then the next one is the position and importance matrix, right? So the stakeholder position and importance what matrix. But the whole thing is that what I see is that even if students are able to produce this matrix, okay, they are not able to interpret it. That's my problem. Okay, you have identified that this stakeholder is antagonistic. Okay, so if he is antagonistic, how do you deal with him? So actually here is stakeholder management, right? That is very important. The stakeholder management strategies. Okay, so how do we manage this person? We try to what? Reach a compromise. Okay, reaching a compromise involves, then you start talking about it. But I see students, they'll just say, okay, this stakeholder is, therefore, he's antagonistic stakeholder. And so what? He is antagonistic. So what do we do? So first of all, who are antagonistic stakeholders? These are stakeholders who are what? Who are very important to the business strategies that can define the business strategies, whether I get in it, they are like the business strategy should go on or should not go on. They are very important to the business, right? What I get in it, and then they oppose. So these people have high what opposition for the company. They oppose everything you bring out, and also what they are very important to the company, right? Then you can even give an example like what a key shareholder who disagrees with your strategies is antagonistic. Now we've seen who they are. What do you think would be the potential problem from the scenario that you have been given? Oh, it seems that this man owns the majority of shares, and this is the reason why the strategy is not going with him, because it is against his risk what? His risk appetite. Maybe this guy was what? A risk-averse person, okay? Based on what you saw in the scenario. And they want to go and take up a risky venture. But since this guy owns what? A small majority of the shares. Let's say he owns 27% of all the shares in the company. And all the other investors own small. It means this guy becomes highly opposing because one, assuming he was risk-averse, right? And the strategy that management wants to go and undertake is risk. I get is risky, or they are risk seekers. You see that he will not go in line with it, meaning that this guy is highly opposing and he's very important because of the shares he owns. You see how I'm approaching this? So we are saying that, okay, we have seen this guy is antagonistic, all right, Mr. So and so. But the question is, how do we manage him? Okay, how do we manage him? So I tell you, if you are doing stakeholder analysis, at the end of the day, the most important thing is what? The management. The what? What is important?
The management.
Management.
The management. So you don't, it's not about the knowledge, but your ability to manage the stakeholder. So we are saying that, okay, we have identified that this is Mr. So and so. Fine, you have. But how does it play out in that scenario? I hope that makes sense. Okay, so that is it. So that's the third type of analysis, right? How many analyses have we written so far?
Three.
Three, okay. Okay, so that's three. So the next area we are going to talk about, which is what? 4, right? It's what we call position analysis. Now, position analysis is to ask yourself, where are we now, right? Where are we now? And the position analysis is the reason why you are doing the environmental analysis, okay? So let's say that, let me shift position analysis to 5, right? I just want to group all the kind of analysis you should be expecting. So the stakeholder was the third type, right? So 4 is internal analysis. Okay. I hope you are right. So with internal analysis kind of questions, what I expect you to know, okay, here you can get some particular important models to apply, right? But internal analysis, I think the most important area of an internal analysis is a resource audit, right? Auditing your resources, knowing what competencies and what resources you have, right? So resource and competence audits. Let's just see that, right? So the whole thing is that anytime you want to assess your resources, the end result of an internal analysis is to come up with what? A strategic what? Capability. Okay, so when we say somebody is capable in case study, we mean 2 things. You have what? Resources, okay? And you have what? Skills to manage those resources. So what are my resources? What are the skills to manage those resources? That is what we call competence, right? So competence are the skills to manage or utilize your resources effectively. And the resources are what? The assets, I get it, and other things that you use, I get it, to make sure your business goes on. Now we are saying that anytime you are looking at a resource, I get it. Let's put down a resource matrix. Okay, sorry for all these annotations, but I hope you can see what I mean. I hope you can see.
Yes, bro, we can see.
So let's just say that, assuming we want to put this down, okay? Assuming we want to put this down as a resource and competence matrix, right? So let's say that this is a resource matrix. Okay, so let's say if you have a resource or competence that can easily be imitated, right? Can easily be copied. Or a resource or competence that cannot easily be copied, right? And then when we come to resources and we come to competencies, if you have a resource that can easily be copied, that means it's a general resource which everybody going into that business will require, right? So sometimes you can use this when, assuming they ask you to maybe do some sort of analysis, maybe identify strengths and weaknesses in a scenario. What you can do is that you can use this bit, right, to talk. And I'll teach you how to identify strengths and weaknesses in every scenario. It doesn't matter whether you've read pre-scene or not. Even at the exam hall, the D-Day, you can still watch and identify what they want. Okay, it's a strategy. Everything is strategy. So if a resource can easily be copied, then what we say is that what? It is a basic resource. Okay, basic resource meaning that anybody who wants to go into that industry needs this resource to survive. For instance, if I decide to start up an electrical firm, right? Let's say an electric shop or electrical shop. What are some of the things that I need to go into electrical shop? First of all, I need a shop, right? I need a shop attendant. True or false?
So true.
I need what? Maybe some basic, some people do not even have knowledge in electricals, right? But they run electrical shops. Yes, what else do we need? The electrical stuff, right?
Yeah.
The
The electrical.
gadgets or those things. Yes. Now you are saying that these ones are just basic resources which everybody can acquire. True or false? Everybody who wants to go into it can easily do this.
True.
And what happens? This itself can become what? A barrier to entry or not. Do you know sometimes some of the unique resources, the reason why we say it cannot easily be copied is that it can even create what? A barrier to entry. Let's look at another electrical shop, right? Okay, so we've seen what? The resources. What about the competencies? If you are running an electrical shop, what are the basic skills that you need that everybody at all can copy and do the same thing? Yes.
Some basic knowledge in electricals.
some basic knowledge in electrical, right? So let's say that if we come to competence, we need some basic what knowledge. I get it about electricals. Apart from that, you need to have some basic knowledge about selling to customers, right? Or receiving people, or customer relationship, something simple, right? Now that you are saying this, you see that these ones are what basic resources that everybody can use to go into that industry. And then when it comes to competencies, we call it threshold competence, right? So threshold competence is just a basic competence which everybody at all can copy. So it means that if I want to go into electricals now, I can go into it, right? Because this doesn't serve as a barrier to entry. It can easily be copied. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, what about a resource that cannot easily be copied? That kind of resource is what we call a unique resource. So with a unique resource, it means that you cannot copy it. And how can't you copy? For instance, let's say that we have what? Somebody with 25 years, okay, 25 years of experience is the shop attendant, right? 2, the company or the electrical shop has received awards, award-winning electrical shop. Not so. Apart from that, they have branches all over the country. Apart from that, they have staff strength, okay, of over 2,500 staff. Now, this is just something small, but let me ask you a question. Can this easily be copied? Please, it's an interactive session. Can this easily be copied?
No.
So no, as well the 25 years of experience.
Why can't we copy? Why can't we copy this?
Yeah, unique.
It has grown over time.
And it's not
Grown over time and
Can acquire skills.
Cannot be connected easily.
yes. So you see that with this one compared to just having a shop attendant and electricals, I get it. And let's say that they have what? They have a contract with the leading electrical cable manufacturer in maybe Japan, right? This thing, you cannot easily secure a contract with this company. So it is something you cannot easily copy. It requires a lot of work, right? And the 25 years of experience, or you have what? Award-winning electricians, right? They have skills which people cannot easily copy. True or false? True. That's making it a core competence. Do you understand? So we are saying that to succeed or gain what we call sustainable competitive advantage, you need strategic capability. I told you resources plus what? Competencies gives you capability, right? But not every mixture of resources and competencies gives you the required capability. So in summary, we are saying that what? When we have a basic resource, okay, a basic resource plus what? A threshold competence, it ends up giving us what? A basic capability, right? Or a threshold capability, meaning that your capability can easily be what? Copied. And this one does not create what? It does not create sustainable what? Competitive advantage. What does that mean? Please, your background, right? If you know you have, let's say you just mute for me so that everybody will benefit. Why does this mean? I didn't say does not create competitive advantage. It can, okay, but it will not be sustainable. What do I mean? Assuming you are the very first person who brought this basic resource, right? You are the very first person who brought this basic resource that everybody can acquire, but then nobody had an idea to it at that time. Can't it create competitive advantage for you? Please answer me. Please answer me. Can't it create competitive advantage for you?
Yes,
It can.
it could.
But is it sustainable?
No,
No.
it's not.
Very soon, people will become aware of it.
Yes,
So come in.
And then
over a
you
long
start-
time.
That is the thing. So we are saying that having a basic resource, I get it, and a basic competence or a threshold competence only leads to a basic capability. And a basic capability can never create a sustainable competitive advantage. Some people say it doesn't create competitive advantage. It can, maybe if you are the first person, if you are innovative, right? This is innovation you brought. it will only take a few, maybe months or days before somebody will copy, especially in a hyper competition context. But sometimes if you are very innovative, even though your resources and competencies are threshold, it may take time for people to think at your level, right? Now, so what we can conclude is that if you want sustainable competitive advantage, you must have what? Unique resources, and then what? Core what?
Core competence.
Core competencies. I get it. To get what? Sustainable or what? Strategic capability. So can we all conclude that strategic capability leads to what? Sustainable what? Competitive advantage. True or false?
True.
Now, this is what I really want you to understand. Now, when you understand this, no matter the kind of case that is giving you, you know that, okay, this company has some resources. This company has some core competencies that I must understand, right? If I understand these resources and core competencies, then I'm gone. Okay, and I'll come and teach you how to go into these resources and then capabilities, right? Now, it means that when you see this, unique resources and core competencies in a case, you have strengths. Okay, it doesn't mean that, oh, this is a resource, is a strength. No. It should be what? A unique resource or a core competence. I get it, which is what? This one becomes a strength, right? How does it become a weakness? If there's a lack, okay, or the person has but is underutilizing it. So underutilization of a particular unique resource or core competence is also a weakness because you cannot use your resources well. Okay, so how? If you go to the exam, right, and you see these things, if it's a noun, you are looking for resources, right? So resources are identified by nouns, okay? They are identified by nouns and what? Maybe adjectives. Okay, so the experienced managing director. It's a key resource. Don't you understand? Award-winning staff. That word award-winning is qualifying the staff. So this thing, it can be a sure banker for you. Case study can be very interesting. You just need the right guidance. You just need the right technique, and you should be fine. So see, maybe fleet of vehicles. This is a noun, right? A fleet, a noun, signifying that it's resources. Adjectives, experienced manager, award-winning barber. No, so this one tells you that these things are resources, right? But when you want to identify competencies, you are looking for verbs and also adjectives that look like a skill, right? For instance, this guy had what? He can cook. They said the chef can cook what? 100 meals in maybe 25 minutes, right? What does this tell you? This guy has a skill which people cannot easily copy. True or false?
True.
True. So you get how we identify these things in scenarios. It's that easy. But if you don't know, you don't know, right? Things can be simple for you. You can simplify issues, but if you don't know, you don't know. Anyway, that was about the resource, I get it, and competence analysis, which means that at the end of the day, what you're actually trying to do is that you are doing a resource audit without knowing. By resource audit can be broken into many, we have different ways we do it, right? You can group your resources using the EMS approach. So we have the EMS model to the resource analysis. Okay, and I'll teach you how to do a proper resource analysis. So we have the EMS model, and you can use the general resource analysis where you break, okay, what are my financial resources, right? What are my human resources? Okay. What are my maybe intangible resources? Okay. What are my tangible resources? Okay, so this one is also a typical resource audit, but what you are doing is that you are taking each resource and analyzing it, whether it can lead to sustainable competitive advantage or not, right? So when you are doing a resource audit, you're actually diagnosing your strategic capability, okay? It's like you are a surgeon, you are diagnosing the person whether he has a certain disease or not. So diagnosing strategic capability, there are some specific models, right? Which are very important, right? So the first is the resource audit I talked about. But after that, you need to check whether you are meeting this strategic capability or not. That's the end result of whatever you are doing in internal analysis, right? Assessing whether you have unique resource plus core competencies. And what do? The first model you need is the value chain, right? And the value chain becomes the most significant model the most significant model here. So anytime internal analysis should come, okay, this is the most important model that can always be examined. Every day they can bring value chain, and value chain is one thing that fits into every area. It brings coordination, right? When you look at strategic management, it is actually what? A skill or art of coordinating, right? Cross-functional departments, cross-functional decisions, and ensuring that they lead to what? Achievement of organizational goals. It means that the value chain is the only model or one of the models that interlink every part of the organization, from operations to, you see, when you look at the value chain, their primary activities, their supporting activities, right? It merges it brings all the various departments or the various functions of an organization together under one umbrella, making it a very important model. And the reason why we say value chain is at the end of the day, no matter what you do, is to provide value to the customer. So how do you manage activities between what? Your primary activities and secondary or supporting activities to ensure that that value is created? How do you ensure proper synergy across the various departments or proper coordination to ensure that what that value is created? How do you ensure that non-value adding activity, right? Let's say you have a particular function in the organization which is not really doing well. How do we ensure that those ones are eradicated and the company focuses on its core business that can drive value? Do you get it? So the value chain is a very important model. For me, when I'm even assessing strategies or I'm creating strategies, sometimes I use the value chain. And through that, I can easily see whether this one is the particular skill or particular thing the company should focus on. It is something that they should avoid. Now, if you know this, trust me, you are going to be fine, right? So the value chain is the first model for diagnosing strategic capability, right? There are a lot of them, but ICA has actually, they want students to pass. So things like total quality management and all those things have been taken out. But then another area which is very important is the VRIO framework, okay? So the VRIO framework is also a resource diagnosing or a strategic capability diagnosing model. So every resource that you see, you check whether it offers value to the company. It is inimitable. When we say something is inimitable, it means that you cannot copy it, okay? Then the next one you have to talk about is what? Whether it is rare. You know that if you have something that is rare, it means people cannot easily get it. Assuming you were the first person that found maybe uranium, right? And then you use it to make some nuclear weapons, okay? Do you think this resource, everybody can acquire it?
So no.
No.
So it becomes a unique resource, right? Making it difficult for people to even get it. If you can't get it, how can you copy? You can't, right? Then finally, every resource must have organization-wide support. So any resource that does not have organization-wide support, it means that people cannot use it, because if there's organization support, that means there's coordination between every part of the organization on how that resource can be used effectively and efficiently. So in a case, are you getting it? If you want to use the VRIO framework, you have to check the details that have been given, whether the resources provide value, they are valuable, they cannot easily copy it, or they are rare and they offer organization-wide support. If this is done, then you can say that, oh, then that resource that I'm dealing with is a unique resource, right? So the VRIO can help us identify what resources that can be categorized as what being unique. I hope that is okay. Another model you can use, which is not necessarily a model, but goes in line with VRIO, is we can call it RUN, okay? So we are saying that if you don't want to use VRIO, you can use RUN, where you are saying that, okay, if I want to diagnose, please, who is that? So we can say what? The resource must be rare. So we can look at things like what? Rarity, okay? So you can look at things like what? Rarity. The resource must be rare, okay? The resource must be robust. The resource must offer value. And the resource must be non-substitutable. I hope that makes sense. So we are saying that if a resource is substitutable, that means you can easily substitute it with something else. That means everybody can do it, right? So if a resource meets this criteria, then it means that this resource cannot easily be copied as well, right? Another area of importance that can lead to you gaining sustainable competitive advantage or you having strategic capability is how you manage your customers, right? So customer relationship management becomes what? Very important. And note, this is an aspect that this new syllabus, this syllabus hadn't examined before, but bits and pieces, because customer relationship management would involve what? Identifying customers, dealing with them, not so. It's actually through a channel from the part that you know your customers, from the time you know your customers down to the time you capture their data and know what they want. It's part of customer relationship management, right? Customer retention, are you getting it? Customer identification, are you getting it? All these things are ways of customer relationship management. And it goes in line with IT now. As this digital marketing, you have to find a way to identify customers, how to, and you know, all these things can help you achieve strategic capability because the customer is key. Now, in the modern world, we don't do selling, we do marketing. That is identifying some particular need and satisfying them, making somebody take some particular action. So if you are going to get competitive advantage or you are going to get strategic capability, then you should know how to manage your customers very well. Okay, though there are other models, with these models alone, you stand a chance of passing your strategic case study. Okay, when it comes to internal analysis, because these are the most important models, okay, that you need. You see, I'm always talking about models because everything is about models, and that is where the weakness of students are. So any question on this area before we move to the next type of analysis? So how many analyses do we have so far? Is it 5 or 4? Is it 5 or 4?
4. That is 4. You said the 5 will be the position hotel.
Yes, yes. Thank you. So the next one, let me put it in a different color, is position analysis, right? So position analysis is the end result of all the analysis we saw at the top, right? And that is what you call a SWOT analysis, right? So with SWOT analysis, there are even variations. There are variations of a SWOT analysis, right? So we can have what we call the normal SWOT analysis, okay? Where you are going to do the normal SWOT analysis. You have where you have what? A financial SWOT analysis, okay? Which this one, students do not have an idea. But anytime you are asked to do SWOT, make sure you include the financial SWOT analysis. I'll come and tell you what that means in a short time. Then we have what we call SWOT analysis, right? So this one focuses on the important parts of SWOT. That's opportunities and strengths, right? And look at how your long-term aspirations, are you getting it? And your results have come into play because of this strengths and opportunity. So we are saying that, okay, if this company had some, let's see, the company wishes to be the best fruit juice company in the world. This is an aspiration, true or false? True or false? Wishes to be the best fruit juice company in the world or the best juicing company in the world. True or false?
It's true. It's an aspiration.
Now let's see. The company has a land in its hometown, right? Land in its hometown where it came from, where the CEO came from. Very vast land which has been inherited. And also, are you getting it? They have what? People now want what? Organic fruit juice. Okay, people now want organic fruit juice. Are you getting it? So look, the land that they have is a strength. True or false? The organic fruit juice that people want is an opportunity because this company is already producing juice, but maybe it's not organic. But now there's an opportunity to produce what? Organic food because now people are conscious about their health. True or false? So one, if you are doing a SWOT analysis, first of all, what's the strength? The company has what? Land, right? True or false? Large case. Okay. So this is a variation of the SWOT, and it's also in your syllabus. 2, we have what? Opportunity. What's the opportunity? What's the opportunity? Producing organic what? Fruit juice, right? Okay. Now, what's the aspiration of the company? So it's like we are looking at this and see how it fits, right? So the aspiration was to be what? The best juicing company, right? the best juicing company in what? In the next 5 years, right? This is the aspiration. Okay, the result is the end result of all these things you have put in. So because of your strength and your opportunity, let's say the company actually produced the juice, right? And between 2021 and 2022, okay, what happened? Let's say the revenue of the company grew significantly, right? From maybe 20 billion to 80 billion, right? This is good result, true or false? Telling you that you are gradually becoming the best what? Company. Also, if the company's maybe market share, okay, the market share of the company has increased, it tells you that this is good result going or gearing towards what? Your aspiration. Does that make sense? So the result is more of the analytical part, where you are going to assess whether truly the company has done something to ensure that its aspirations have been met. So the SWOT has a variation, which is SWOT analysis, but the SWOT analysis only focuses on strengths and opportunities. But the other aspect is just looking at your end goal and looking at the results that end goal, like what results have you put in or what results have been created for the company that is going towards that side. I hope it makes sense. I hope it makes sense.
Yes, sir.
I know people have not seen a typical SWOT analysis before. So let me just give you a brief case, okay? Let me just give you a brief case. A brief case. I like it. Let me just give you a brief case. Brief case that you hold. Okay, so let's see.
The bigger one so that I can put our things.
So let's see.
Aye.
So this is a typical case, right? So Ebusia Farms Limited is a company established to engage in poultry farming. Currently, it owns and runs a poultry farm located at Ada, Accra. With 5 years experience in egg production, the company currently produces 700 crates of egg per day, all of which are sold in Ada. The current demand for eggs in Ada is estimated at 2,000 crates per day, and the company's vision is to become the country's biggest egg producer within the next 10 years. This one can be deemed to what? One part of the biggest one. What will we put this? If you are doing SWOT, what are we going to put here?
Aspiration.
Aspiration. Okay, I like that. As a growth strategy, it plans to expand production to 10,000 crates of egg per day through installation of more cages and pens at its premises. This can also be something I aspire to achieve. Is it not a goal?
Yes.
It is.
So where will we put this? Aspiration.
Yeah.
Acquisition of more chicken and other required inputs. Aspiration, right? The focus is to serve the market for eggs in selected towns in southern Ghana, all of which have an estimated daily demand of 50,000 crates. This can also be deemed as an aspiration because it's something we wish to do. Production capacity of all competitors of Ebusia Farms in the market for eggs in the Southwest was estimated at 32,000 crates per day. The company hopes to take advantage of this demand gap through the establishment of distribution outlets across major cities in the region for effective marketing. Aggressive advertisement campaign to stimulate demand for its product will also be embarked upon. Okay, so the establishment of a new poultry or expansion of the production capacity of an existing one has no legal requirement except for making what? Adequate arrangement for waste management. Capital requirement is high. However, Bank of Ghana recently approved the release of soft loans to all interested poultry farmers as part of government agri-loan scheme aimed at promoting farming. What is this? Giving soft loans. What is it? So strength, opportunity, aspiration, result.
What?
What? No. Bank of Ghana is giving loans.
Opportunity.
Farmers.
Okay. Opportunity. You
can take this loan.
Yeah.
Do you? Okay. Ebusia Farms intends to fund 60% of its growth through this agri-loan scheme. So this is an opportunity is taken advantage of, right? Which the Bank of Ghana has approved and is currently awaiting disbursement. So for the success of the proposed growth strategy, it hopes to leverage on the following. Now look, knowledge and experience of poultry business acquired in the 5 year of operation. What is this? SOAR. Where will this fall?
Strength.
Size of land owned by the company where current production takes place is adequate for the proposed expansion.
Strength.
Strength. Strong business relationship with the biggest and most reliable suppliers. Strength, right? Growth rate of demand for X in tandem with the population of country.
Yes.
What is that?
Opportunity.
Opportunity.
Because now there's demand for X. You
Yeah.
get it? Okay. The company has access to current technology in X production, which has not changed in decades.
Strength.
Okay. It hopes to install automatic solid chicken waste flashes, egg pickers, and sorters. There are also plans to employ 2 in-house veterinarians. The problem of, so this one, current technology in egg production, the word current, right? But they said that it has not changed in decades. You can comment on it too, but it could mean that it's a weakness. The problem of kidnapping has become worrisome in the area where the company operates. What is this? Somebody will say threats, right? It is a threat. But the problem is, are we looking for threats? A lot of people get on. Are we looking for threats?
No.
No, we are not looking for threats. So this model just focuses on what? Opportunities and strengths, right? So this one, kidnapping, we are not concerned. Now, there's no public water supply to the farm location and fire home. This is not what we are looking for. You see the way I answer questions. If the thing is not important, I can only give a comment, but it's not important for the model. Now, see, with increase in the production of eggs comes an increase in solid waste generation and air pollution. Yes, this is there, right? But these are all weaknesses and what? Threats. You are not concerned. So if I'm doing so, we are talking about strength, opportunities, aspirations, and results. So if I'm looking at my strength, right? Knowledge, experience of the port, what? In the 5 years of operation, size of land, strong business relationship, access to current technology, and also availability of privately owned water and those things, right? Opportunities, we saw some of them, right? Existence of a huge gap in the supply of eggs in the Southwest, availability of Bank of Ghana approved soft loans, eggs in the market is growing, and needed labor is available in the community at Adan. What's our aspiration? The vision of being the largest egg producer. The current growth strategy, which could be one of the phases towards achieving a longer-term goal. And then the results, right? They are indicated. Do you understand? Who is that? Oh, yeah, sending crying. Are we okay? So we can see the results are the indicators that measure progress towards achieving your goals. So the current capacity and market share indicates progress towards achieving the long-term goal. Do you understand? Did you get a SWOT analysis? I know people have seen SWOT, but I hope this variation you have understood it. I hope it's not. So if they should pop up, you can easily kill it. No be so. Okay, that is. So that's one aspect of position appraisal. So let me just clean this SWOT analysis from there. I hope you are learning, you are picking value from this session. So let's see. Yes, Eben, your hand is up.
Yes, please. Please, I want to clarify something. Is it advisable that in answering a question, let's say a question on the model SWOT analysis, is it advisable to talk about, let's say, the strength, explain what strength is, then you come in and you link it to the case?
Of course. Okay, you weren't here earlier when I was talking about how to approach scenario-based questions. We talked about P, right? And all my students know that this is the approach we do. Actually, case study, you are studying a case. So if I are talking about strength, fine. Okay, you could start at the top explaining what SWOT is and all that. I get it. Then you come and now explain. It's good. Or you can use the P approach point. Maybe I get it. This is what you want to talk about. What is a strength? These are the strengths of the company, right? That's the explanation of what strength is. Then finally, you do what? Evidence from the case. From the case, the following indicate the strength. Yes, it's appropriate. If you do it like that, it's even the best approach. Eben, is your question answered?
Yes, thank you.
Is the answer?
Yes, please. Thank
okay,
you.
that's okay then. So another variation is what we call the tools analysis. Okay, the tools analysis, when I look in this ICA syllabus, it's not really talked about, but the tools analysis is a variation of SWOT, okay, that is using strategic choice. The tools analysis comes with you doing your normal SWOT analysis, but then you are going to look at the strategies that are going to help you what? Succeed, right? Which strategy should you choose? It's a strategic choice model, but you can use it in strategic analysis. So what strategies can you use your strength? Which strategies enable you to use your strength to take advantage of opportunities? Which strategies enable you, I get it, to use your strength to counter what? Your threats. Which strategies enable you to use your strength to counter your weaknesses? Which strategies do you use to ensure that what? Your threats do not become weaknesses? Do you understand? So if you have a strategy that meets this criteria, then it tells you that you should choose those strategies, meaning that those strategies become suitable, feasible, and acceptable. So this model can be used in place of the SFA. Are you learning something?
Yes, bro.
Okay. So that was the fifth area, right? So I don't want to waste so much time. The next area, which is the sixth area of analysis, is what I will call financial analysis, right? So financial analysis and decision making, okay? I added to analysis, okay? So financial analysis and decision making, the first one is performance appraisal, right? This is where I put the performance analysis. Basically, I'm talking about ratio analysis, right? Ratio analysis. The next area, I'm just giving you the areas which are very important. There are other areas. The next one is what we call, let's say, working capital analysis, right? Working capital analysis, okay, which is also aspect of ratio, but the focus is on working capital, like the working capital ratios. Then we have financial risk analysis. This one pops up almost every day. So financial risk analysis is what we call what? Gearing. Okay, so you've seen gearing or leverage in the IC exam almost every day. It pops up, right? Then you can look at divisional performance, right? And then maybe financial and non-financial models of performance, right? So here we are looking at where we have something like the balance scorecard, okay, the balance scorecard, the building block model. Okay, I'm talking about the financial aspect, the performance pyramid, right? So you see, all the models are actually interlinked, right? So these are the 5 areas of analysis. So in summary, what are your areas of analysis? First is what? The environmental analysis. The second was competition, right? Or competitive analysis. The third was what?
Shareholders analysis.
Stakeholder analysis.
Sorry, stakeholders.
The next was what?
Internal analysis.
Internal analysis. And then the fifth was what? Position, right? Position analysis or SWOT and its variations. And the last was what?
Financial analysis.
Analysis. Okay. Nicely said. Okay, so now, what is the exam approach? How do you deal with questions, right? So let's look at external analysis quickly. External analysis. How do you deal with questions here? Dealing with questions in external analysis, there are 2 approaches you can adopt, right? There are many, actually. This is 2 approaches I use, and that makes my answer top-notch, right? The first one is to use the W approach. What has happened? How did it happen? Okay? So what has happened? You can even, it doesn't really matter the structure, but what has happened? Why did it happen? How did it happen? When did it happen? So when and how, you can do it the same. So when or how did it happen? And so what is the implication? Right? So what has happened? Okay, this is a question. You don't write it down, but this is what you ask yourself. These are mental models. So what has happened in the case? Let me use the example that I used. Okay, what has happened? Government is clamping down. So this is the case, right? The case is GGOH. Let me just show the case so that we will apply the model. It makes it more interesting that way. So I'm coming. This was on SWOT. Let's go to PESTEL, right? So I'll show you many ways of approaching PESTEL questions, right? But before that, let's see. PESTEL. Okay. I'm actually looking for pestles. So please hold on for me. Okay. So look at this scenario, right? So it's a mini case, though it's a full case. I just extracted this, right? DGH is a luxury hotel in Ghana, and the company's key customers are foreigners and a few local companies. Okay. Illegal miners, which are galamsey operators, I get to lodge at the hotel often, and let's say they are the key customers, right? And they contribute largely to the company's revenue. That means that these people are key stakeholders or key customers that you cannot do away with, right? If we look at the environment, they said what? Most villages have been damaged because of these illegal mining activities. Okay, and the government is devising a policy to clamp down the harmful effects of illegal mining. Okay, and they've also added that exchange rates have increased by 20%. That means what? The Ghana cedi is what? Declining, or what? What other word would I use? Is depreciated against the other currencies, right? Now, assuming I'm being pestle and I'm looking for political factors, okay? What has happened? Maybe the first point is what has happened, right? I told you what. So what has happened? What can we say? The government has devised a policy to what? Eradicate illegal mining. True or false? This is my point, but this is what is going on. Makes sense? 2, why? Because of what? The destruction of what? Villages and what? Villages and communities, right? True or false? True or
True.
false?
True.
Okay.
True.
So how did this happen, or when did this happen? Usually some cases do not have this. But looking at this happened because the illegal miners, not so, were damaging rivers and way. I get it. And this is the reason why government is devising this policy. And this will happen in the next quarter or whatever. Then the next question is, so what? This is the most important area. This so what is the implication on the company? So the implication talks about what is the effect on the company? Does it lead to an increase in revenues or profits? As an accountant, this is what you are concerned about. Does it lead to an increase in revenue or profit? Or it leads to what? A reduction in revenue or profits? Not so. Or an increase in cost, an increase in cash flow, a reduction in cost or cash flow. Does it affect going concern? Yes, of course, because if government creates this policy, what happens? I will lose a lot of customers. Can affect my occupancy rate, and thereby what? Reducing profits. Thereby can affect my going concern. So if you should restructure this into a nice what? A nice paragraph using bullet point for each of these ones, you see that your answer looks superb, right? So I tell you, it's not necessarily knowledge. After the knowledge, you need to apply the knowledge. That is what we call wisdom, the application of knowledge, right? So this is the first model, and I hope it makes sense. Yes, Benny, your hand is up.
So, say in a Senate, what advice will you give?
That every point you give, there should have an implication on the company.
Yes, and you told us that as a consultant or a professional student, always you must also suggest if the problem is there, what should the company do to at least find a way out of solving the problem or reducing the impact?
Yes, so it's part of the so what. That is the action to take, right?
Oh, okay.
I have various models I use. I also use Iowa. Okay, so for me, case studies are my thing. So Iowa, what is the issue at hand? Government is bringing down a policy. Why is that an issue? Because there's distraction, and this is what will happen on the company, right? What is the action to take? The company should do this and this and that to ensure the occupancy rates are kept at par. Makes sense. So this one usually works for more of ethics, right? What is the issue? The guy was employed by his uncle. Okay, why would this be? And that creates a familiarity trait. Why would that create a familiarity trait? Because this guy will what? Overlook errors and would want to satisfy his uncle, or would not want to disgrace his uncle. What is the action to take, right? So this is where you are looking at safeguards, and there are safeguards provided by the profession in the work environment, like internal controls. That means there should be appropriate authorizations and what maybe approvals to ensure that this guy is not giving what the same thing. That segregation of duties can be there, right? Appropriate controls, effective monitoring, effective supervision, direction, right? Then where a safeguards provided on an individual assignment. Since this is an accounting scenario, that means you are not looking at safeguards provided on the individual work. Do you get the idea? So there are various models that as a student, you have these mental models in mind. When you get a question, you just flow with it. I hope that makes sense. Benny, is your question answered now? So always, it is better to always give a recommendation when you are giving it. Ben, are you okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so is everybody okay with the first model in how to answer environmental analysis question? It doesn't matter whether you are dealing with pestle, you are dealing with ratios, you are dealing with Porter's diamond, you are dealing with 5 forces. You can still use the same thing. What has happened? Why, how, and when? So what? How and when mostly are not in the scenario. So you end up with what, why, and so what, the implication, right? Or you can even start with what, so what is the implication, right? It doesn't really matter. It depends on what you want to say. Any question? Any question, or everything I said so far makes sense?
Yes.
Joseph,
Okay.
please, in this scenario,
Yeah.
what are the possible actions the company or the hotel can take to maybe minimize the impact of the government?
What are the possible actions? You are saying possible what? Actions. That means you are looking at strategies. Yes, of course. A typical one is what? Increase their local market. Because government has not yet done this, right? So what will the company do to increase its local market, right? Increasing local market means that, okay, I'm trying to do what I did already. Adelaide, trying to do what I did already. And doing what I did already means I'm selling the same service to my existing what? Customers, right? And what is this? Market penetration. I can increase advertising efforts, right? I can decide to bring in discounting methodologies, right? Or free visits to the hotel when there are occasions, right? Maybe if it's a lady, you see companies do it. If it's a lady, it's free. If it's a couple, you pay plus something so that we can shift it to these people. You see what I'm doing? So that at the end of the day, if government even cuts down this mining operations, I would have what? You see, it says a few local companies. I would have increased the patronage of these local companies, right? So that I'll not be completely dependent on these illegal miners. So even when government passes this legislation, I have implemented strategies. The same way I can do product development, right? I can try and then introduce a new local service, right? And include it in my luxury hotel. That, okay, people will get a lounge or they can watch football at the lounge, not so, for a fee, a very low fee. Instead of focusing on foreigners, you can even use a place and do event planning and all that. You see how I'm coming? So anytime you talk about actions, you are definitely talking about strategies. Ben, I hope it's clear.
Yes, sir.
So it doesn't matter where you come from. If it's in, you can suggest any kind of strategy as far as it makes sense. But look at what the examiner actually wants. Here, I was using more broad strategies, right? The same way, if the company is in the maturity stage, I can decide to just do consolidation, to do nothing and let it happen because I'm just at the maturity stage. I'm already mature. So I don't really see the need, right? So I can do a no-profit strategy. Mostly this one works for non-profit organizations, or I can decide to do what we call a consolidation strategy. Sometimes I can even do withdrawal. It's not always at the decline stage companies do withdrawal. Even at the maturity stage, there are some of your products that or your services that you feel like you can withdraw from the market. Does that make sense? These things are very practical. It makes sense.
Yes,
okay. So you see that even with what we did, they still gave us some extract in the financial statement. And then you can see that what the revenue has what shot up, right? From 2019 to 2020, and cost have operating profit has gone down. So if revenue is increasing and operating profit has decreased, what does it mean? It means costs have gone up. True or false?
True.
Do you get it? And as a case study student, your most important metric is always what? Percentage change or growth all the time, anytime you have data, this is the most important thing. And we know this is what the current year minus the previous year, all over the previous year, right? Times 100. Or the current year over the base year or the previous year minus 1, all times what? 100. Not so. Which you know as new minus old, all over old. Not so. Times 100. Not so. This thing, never forget this. So here, you are going to find the percentage change in revenue and profit, or calculate maybe the gross profit, the operating margin, right? Operating margin, that's what your net profit, operating profit over what your revenue, and tell us how much it has changed from this year to that year, and how it is as a result of increase in cost, right? You could see that. Why did the cost increase? So let's start. What has happened? So you can start from anywhere. What has happened? Operating profit, or you get to operating profit margin has reduced by 20%. Okay. If you are doing it from the point of ratios. Okay. Why do you think this has happened? This has happened because they said what? Exchange rates have what? Exchange rates have what? Have increased by what? 20%, right?
20%.
So what is the implication? Yeah, we cannot do how did that happen, because that one is a government policy, right? But what is the implication? The implication is that what? Cost will keep increasing if the company doesn't keep it in check. What action should be taken? The company can put in appropriate what? Hedging methodologies, right? So we have internal hedging and external hedging. So you are talking about what? Invoicing in home currency to reduce this, leading and lagging, also asset and liability management, matching. I get in it. Maybe then the external, maybe doing nothing, accepting the risk for what it is also a strategy. Maybe using money market hedging, using forward contracts, using options, using swaps, using futures contract, right? So you see how I answer questions. I make sure that I utilize every other financial data that has been given. Do you understand? So you see people are rushing about pre-scene. Meanwhile, the basic techniques, the required techniques that they need, they do not focus on those ones. Even after I teach you everything you need to know in the pre-scene, okay, fine, I've done that. Now, what else? If you go and I'm seeing they bring this, you don't know how to do it. So I see people learn the models in isolation when there's supposed to be relationship with each of the models. So what is the secret? Now you've seen, we have looked at what? The what, the why, the when and how. This is when data has been given about when it happened during the year, and the so what, which is the implication, right? Okay. So you can adopt this style. Have you written the model down? Have you written the model down?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we are going to the second model. I told you there are two, right? So what is the second model for answering environmental analysis question, like pest stuff, right? So this is it. Oh, why is my distance going down? Now, the candidate must ask himself the following questions regarding the case. This is another model. One, what have you told me? What have you told me? So example is, what have you told me? The government is clamping down on mining activities, right? Why does it matter? Government clamping down on mining activities is going to reduce the destruction in the water bodies and all that, right? But then the same way, it is going to what? Affect the company's revenue or occupancy rates in the hotel significantly. Why? Because the company's customers are these foreign illegal miners. True or false? True or false?
True.
Does it increase or decrease revenue? This will definitely decrease revenue. Are there any movements on the financial statement? You know this one, the policy has not yet come. So we didn't really see any movement on the financial statement. But assuming government had put in this policy, then we can go and check the financial to see, okay, this might be reason why revenue fell from this to that, right? And this one is the reason why gross profit did this. This is the reason why ROCE did this, right? They want to see this. But how many of you answer questions and put these things in? Most of you don't. Meanwhile, almost every night, ICA will give you a nice financial statement there and call a management account, meaning this is internal, telling you that you can use it for internal performance appraisal. Makes sense? It does, right? Okay. Now, we said what? What have you told me? Why does it matter? Does it increase or decrease revenue, profit, cost, whatever, cash flow? Are there any movement on the financial statement? Compute some ratios and put it there. And end with whether it's an opportunity or threat. So this is where you can even put recommendations, like any future implications in the future for the organization or what actions can be taken. Okay, and that one makes your what? Your answers look so, like, how do we say? It looks professional. That is it. Me, I want you to provide professional answers. That's what distinguishes you from any other student on the market. I hope that makes sense. Did you learn something? So we've seen another model. So it doesn't matter whether it's pestle. You can use this to do Porter's diamond. Maybe you have taken factor conditions, right? You tell us that. What have you told me? That Ghana is rich in what? In waterfalls, right? We are assessing the tourism industry. Ghana is rich in waterfalls and historical sites. Okay, that is what you have told me. Why does it matter? Ghana being what? Rich in waterfalls and way makes this what? A significant what? Factor condition, right? A significant factor condition. Which means that what? Which will mean that what? A lot of people will be drawn towards these factor conditions and thereby creating business for the company. This will thereby increase the patronage of the company service, thereby increasing profits, creating what? An opportunity for the company. Okay, and thereby this is a favorable what? Factor condition for the company. You see how I analyze? So some people will just say factor conditions. These are the natural resources and they are basic factors and advanced factors. Yes, it's good. But then what is the impact of the company? What are you doing Porter's diamond? Is to assess opportunities, identify opportunities or threats. You look at where I'm looking at it. Though I'm looking at it from Ghana as a whole, I'm still looking at it in terms of how it can benefit the company. So you see, it doesn't really matter. What have you told me? Ghana is rich in waterfalls and so on and so forth. Why does it matter? Because it will attract people. People will come, right? And it will increase the company's what? Revenue. Is there an opportunity or a threat? It's an opportunity, thereby creating a favorable factor condition. Makes sense. Are you seeing? The same way, I can apply it to SWOT. It doesn't matter. What have you told me? That the company have a staff strength of what? A staff strength of what? Of maybe 2,500. Why does it matter? Having a staff strength of that much means that you have a significant resource, right? Does it increase or in some aspect? You are going to what? Incur costs for staff costs, right? But since you have a large staff strength, that means you have what? Specialists, you have all different mixture of staff and all that. We can help you increase revenue. Are you getting it? So this is a balanced approach. It could be what? A reduction of that, but having more staff means you can meet your objective, thereby creating an opportunity for the company to create more business. Are you getting it? And thereby this is an opportunity, something like that. So it doesn't really matter what model you're applying, even if it's value chain. What have they told you? That the company buys raw materials, right? From the supplier, distributes it to the warehouse. That's this use current technology. The use in current technology is part of operations, right? Which is what? Supported by what? Technology development in the what? The supporting activities. Okay, fine. That is what they have told you. Why does it matter? Because having this sort of the current technology is going to what? Increase the rate at which the company produces, right? Increase the speed or efficiency of production. And increasing efficiency of production means that what? The necessary technology development for creating value for the customer can be created, thereby increasing revenues in the long term, right? Therefore, this creates what? A strength for the company. So you see, I've used the value chain here. I've used strength and weakness analysis. I can even use 5 forces. What has happened? Customers can buy what? Can buy products at 20% less than the original price on the market. Why does this matter? Customers doing this is going to largely reduce our revenue, thereby making bargaining power of the customers high. Bargaining power of customers being high means that profit is going to reduce because this is an increase in the force. And an increase in bargaining power signifies that what? The company is short on revenues, because when this keeps happening, you have to spend more on customer costs. To the effects, it means that this is what? A threat. So you see, this model can be applied everywhere. It can be applied to ratios. It can be applied to external analysis. It can be applied to what? Anything. Do you get it? So I've given you 2. What have you told me? Why does it matter? Does it affect ratio? Does it affect your revenue or profit? What significant ratios can I compute? Are you getting it? That is there an opportunity or a threat? Do you understand? I hope it makes sense. Or you can go, what has happened?
Yeah.
Is why does it matter? So what is the implication? When and how did that happen? That can also be included if you have timelines in the case, or they tell you how that thing happened. So I think you are fine, right? It's time for questions.
No easy. Easy.
So let's look at a typical question here and look at how we apply the financial SWOT analysis. I just want to show you something. Let me see if I'll find that question. Pray that I find that question. Aha. Happy days. This is an old ICA question. I think, is it 2003? I forgot. But Happy Days Company was founded 30 years ago as a family business. It dealt in general merchandise. 15 years later, the founders converted the business into a private limited company and subsequently diversified its operations to include manufacturing, as well as purchasing, distribution, and sale of soaps. The company is located in the industrial area in Accra, and it has a distinctive brand name, which was created by its founder and the chairman of the company. The brand is a household name in the southern sector of the country, where the company has concentrated its marketing activities. It also exports its products to Mali and Burkina Faso. Since its establishment, the company has been committed to conducting its business in a transparent, socially and environmentally responsible manner. The management of the company adopted an open door policy and allowed employees to participate in decision-making. The chairman always stressed that the managers within the organization must be prepared to listen both to the customers and the employees. The directors of the company have provided the following information to guide the management team for its impending strategic review meetings. Okay, so you see they've given you the operational result for the last 2 years. Now that you have this, right? When you start looking at what they are asking you, so most of the time it says, well, prepare a report evaluating financial performance. So they've given you information regarding the financial performance. So here you pick your own ratios. So if you are talking about performance, if anytime they ask you to look at financial performance, what are the significant ratios we look at? There are 5 categories of ratios we know, right? What are they? Profitability, liquidity, gearing, efficiency, and what? Investment, right? Though there are more than that, but this is the category that they expect us to use. Now, my question is, if we talk about financial performance, what ratios can we put under financial performance? Because some questions analyze performance and position. Yes?
You consider first the ROCE is very important.
No, not the exact ratio. I mean the category. When we talk about financial performance, what categories fall under performance?
That's the performance. We have the we have gross profit,
profitability,
Profitability.
liquidity, efficiency.
Liquidity won't go under financial performance. Liquidity is more of a financial position because it tells you what you have and what you owe at a point in time. Profitability is 2 things: profitability and efficiency. Efficiency leads to profitability. Efficiency can also lead to good position, right? So efficiency are the only kinds of ratios that are part of position and are also part of performance. So if I tell you to analyze performance, and you know how we know this, the ratios formula tells you, look, if I take maybe receivable days, right? So if I want this kind of ratios, I just take the balance sheet figure over the P&L figure times 365, for example. So this is what I'm saying. I want receivable days, or it could come as a turnover. So turnover is just 10 days over. So I have P&L over balance sheet, right? So let's say I want to take receivable days. That means I'll take what? Receivable or average receivable over the P&L figure for receivable, which is sales or credit sales, times 365. Now, the reason why I'm telling you this is a gap between performance and position is because, look, receivable is balance sheet, position. Sales is P&L, performance, right? So you see these ratios are here and they are also here. So the formula itself can tell you whether it's strictly performance-based or it is what? Position-based as well. Does that make sense? But mostly, because they don't want to stress students with so much, they mostly, when you bring only profitability, they'll give you. But to score a lot, you need profitability and efficiency. And a typical one that links profitability and efficiency is asset turnover. Asset turnover is an efficiency ratio. It is also what? A profitability ratio. Are you learning something? So sometimes they'll not tell you that, oh, do profitability, do liquidity, right? But they will tell you that analyze financial performance and financial position of this particular company. Do you get it? Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Yes, please. Yes.
Yeah.
So any other ratio apart from the one that we looked at is what? Our position ratios, our profitability and efficiency. I told you efficiency is between the two, right? So efficiency can be here and it can also be here. Makes sense. Okay, so with this kind of thing, they say we should analyze the performance. And performance starts with what? It's not only what? Ratios. You can also do percentage change, right? Calculate growth to support your ratio. So when you are doing performance, for me, the most important ratio is return on capital employed and its variations. So assuming we didn't have that, are you getting it? We can do variations like we can do return on equity. We can do return on total assets. We can do return on what? Net assets, right? These are all variations of the return on capital employed, and they literally tell you the same thing or similar to this, right? So anytime you have the chance, make sure that you compute this ratio. But the most important one is this. You know, this is the most important ratio in the world because this one tells you the return on your investment. Then everybody wants to invest, wants to know how much he makes on the capital he employs, right? And that is very important. And this ratio is very important because it breaks down two things. It has sub-ratios. That is your operating margin and then your asset turnover, right? So if I want to analyze profitability, I always take these two ratios. Okay, so I'll first talk about ROCE. Okay, come and talk about what? Operating margin. Come and talk about asset turnover. And probably when the company is more cost intensive, I'll come and add gross profit margin to it, right? And then I will link all this back to the ROCE, that this is the reason why ROCE has fell or has increased. Are you getting it? And thereby, you think that the company has performed fairly well, but you would encourage management to put in more effort to do this or to do that, right? Always, your ratios must always have recommendations. The reason why you are not getting ratios is not only in case that whether you are doing analytical procedure and audit or you are evaluating financial accounting policies in corporate reporting or financial reporting, right? Or you are doing normal appraisal under financial or corporate reporting, or you are assessing what suitable financing options under financial management, you always still have to give a recommendation. So there are various ways that companies do this, but when you want to analyze performance, after talking about this one, and I talk about asset turnover, maybe I can look at the debtors this to see how efficient they are in managing their working capital, right? Because effective management of your customers and your suppliers can also lead to efficiency in operations, and efficiency in operations can lead to better performance, right? So that is it. Okay, any questions so far? So you see, you have to what? Look at the case and see how it relates to the figures that have been given. Okay, so the company made investment of 2 million during 27. So literally, you are going to see that assets should have increased by about 2 million. When you see, yes, the increase is about 2 million, right, or more. The investment included in the construction of new offices and purchase of distribution van. When I purchase distribution van, doesn't it come with fueling and other costs? Won't I fuel the van?
Yeah.
You will.
Won't distribution cost increase?
It will increase.
It would increase. So when check if distribution costs have increased, yes, they have increased from 7,875 to 9,834, signifying that this is because they bought distribution vans. When those vans are running, they run on fuel and other maintenance costs, right? Which constitute distribution costs, hence the increase in distribution costs. Do you see how I'm coming up with points for interpretation? They are all in the case. The company has enjoyed considerable success in the domestic market and two West African countries. If this is the case, shouldn't it increase revenues?
Should.
So go and check, has revenue gone up?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
if you have enjoyed considerable success, it should show in your revenue. You see that thing? It's like people are not able to link these things, but being able to link them tells that you are a subject expert. You know these things already. When you were learning opening stock, add purchases, add carriage inwards, add other direct expenses, less closing stock. All these things were knowledge you were building for interpretation. So if cost of sales are increasing, it will tell me that what? There's less slow moving stock, right? Because you know, increase in cost of sales means reduction in closing stock. You see how I got the point? Increase in cost of sales means that maybe I had a lot of opening stock. True or false? Maybe I have a lot of operating expenses during the period. Maybe depreciation increased during the period because non-current asset happened. And if this is a manufacturing company, then most likely depreciation is charged to cost of sales. So this could mean cost of sales is increasing because of depreciation. So you see, the things are already at your fingertips, but it's up to you to open your mind to say that, okay, what are the components that go into cost of sales? Opening stock plus purchases, less closing stock, plus other expenses, right? So an increase in these expenses should increase my cost of sales. A decrease in them should reduce cost of sales. The only thing that reduces cost of sales is closing inventory. So an increase in cost of sales means a decrease in closing inventory. Increase in closing inventory means decrease in cost of sales, meaning you have a lot of slow-moving stock. Makes sense. I hope you are making sense out of it. So, for instance, they say what? The directors are worried about the macroeconomic environment. For example, during 2027, the volatility of crude oil prices brought the economy under some inflationary pressure. So there's inflation. What have you told me? There's inflation. Assuming I was doing pestle here, I'll take inflationary pressure as my topic, right? Why does it matter? You tell us why inflationary pressure matters, because it's going to affect the cost of sales, thereby increasing it. And from our calculations, cost of sales seems to have increased by 10%, right? Then you say this has a significant impact on the gross profit margin, resulting in gross profit margin moving from this and falling by this percentage, right? Does that make sense? So you see, everything you do, you support it with something from the case study. Makes sense? Okay. So everything they were looking at here, they were looking at things that you need for your performance, right? So revenue growth, profitability growth, it doesn't really matter, right? Now, what I am concerned about is what we call a financial SWOT analysis. Okay, and this is the last part I want to talk about before we move to the strategic areas. We have to look at stakeholders before we go to the other areas, right? Now, a financial SWOT analysis assesses your internal strengths and weaknesses as well as your external opportunities and threats. But what you are going to do is that if you see anything that is what valuable, like something like revenue growth, revenue has grown, it's a strength, right? Meaning your internal efficiency is good. Profitability improvement is a strength. Your strength in your equity is a strength. Strategic investment that you did is a strength, right? If you get good ratios, like good liquidity, that means you are managing your cash flows well. Is it not a strength?
It is. It is.
But a lot of students, when they say SWOT analysis, all they go and focus on are the theory aspects. But your figures alone tells you, assuming cash increases, where would we put it? Strength, weakness, opportunity, or threat?
Strength.
Strength. Assuming profitability declines, where will we put it?
Weakness.
Weakness. Assuming your liquidity goes down, you have poor working capital management. No be weakness be that.
Yes, sir.
Yes, that's how you go about these things. So when they say SWOT and they even give you financial statement alone, you should be able to do a full SWOT without even looking at the case. Because the figures themselves give you what is happening, right? But you just need a case to tell you. So when you are doing ratios in case study, you don't say this might be due to, you say this is due to, because you have information. The reason why you were doing this might be due to, or this may be due to, in corporate reporting was because corporate reporting, they don't give you a case in attachment to what the financials they've given you. That's why I said this might be due to. So you are suggesting But here, they've given you a case literally telling you why the revenue is increasing, that the company transports goods to foreign countries, and that is what is contributing towards its success, which is the revenue increase. So the company is expanding, so revenue must increase. So you must always look at these things, and then you should be fine. What were the weaknesses? Lack of detailed financial data, dependence on the foreign market, and the domestic market, right? Some of these things, you can chip it in and say, this is the reason why, if they are dependent on the domestic market, cost of sales seems to be going high. So just be linking them and see the impact. Think about the impact. Always it's about impact, effect, impact, effect. You should be fine. Make sense? So that is it. Any question before we look at the stakeholder model and how to apply this? So I hope by now, if environmental analysis should appear in its raw form, no matter how it comes, you can deal with it and deal with it effectively. No be so.
We will, Prof.
Yes.
Okay. So let's go to stakeholder analysis, right? So for stakeholders, there are two main models which ICA considers. The first is the position and importance matrix, right? And then the next is the Mendeley power interest matrix. So the whole thing when it comes to stakeholder management is simple. Who are they? What have you told me? Who are they? Right? Who are they is what have you told me? Why do they matter to you? Why do they matter? Right? So why do they matter? Is that you are looking at what? Their power and interest, right? Or you are looking at their position and what? Importance. Do you get the idea?
Yes, sir.
So why do they matter? You look at these things, then also their expectations. What do they want from you? Definitely, you must know what somebody wants before you can satisfy, right? How do we satisfy them? Okay, so how do we satisfy them is based on the strategy. Are you getting it? That will come from these ones. Do you get it? Then you conclude. I hope this makes sense. I hope this makes sense. So if you take a case, who is this person? Okay, he's the key shareholder. Why does he matter? He matters because if I'm using position and importance matrix, then I know that his position is that he supports us, right? And also he's very important because he's at +5. That tells me that this guy is a supporter. And what does he want? A key stakeholder wants what? A key shareholder may want what? Increase in its return on investment. That is dividends being paid or capital growth, right? And the company should continue what? Generating profits or last in the long term, right? So that they can get their return on investment. Okay, how do you satisfy them? Because he's a supporter and supports your strategy, the best way to what? The best way to what? Satisfy them is to what? Maintain the goodwill you have with them. How do you maintain goodwill that you have with somebody? And that one I leave to you. You now use your own mental capacity to determine how to maintain goodwill. However, you can learn some of these things and it will go a long way to help you. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Does
bro.
that Are you sure?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Okay. So most of the time, when it comes to stakeholder analysis, what I tell students is that anytime what the model you are doing comes with a diagram, always draw the diagram. So for instance, if I'm looking at position importance matrix, right? I'm going to teach you two approaches. So position and importance matrix. I'm going to teach you two approaches to deal with what? This kind of what? Questions, right? So what we are going to do is that I'm going to draw it like this. Put my importance at the top here, right? So the thing is, anytime you're doing a 2x2 matrix, whatever is at the top is also down. It's the same thing, right? So I always do it first so that I don't get confused. And here is for position. That means this side is also what? Position, right? So whatever you repeat here is a mirror image. So if I put here what? Low, not so, which is -5. I put here high, which is +5, right? I put here will be support, which is +5, and put here -5, which is oppose, right? So the same thing, you have support here, is +5. You have oppose, which is -5, right? So you see, you repeat the same thing. So low importance, -5, high importance, right? +5. So you see how I draw my model so that always I can compare just from one side, this and this, this and this, this and this, right? That makes sense. So we say that with this model, right, the position is what? They oppose your strategies and of low importance. Anybody who opposes your strategy and is of low importance is what? A problematic shareholder, a problematic stakeholder, right? So these ones are problematic. Okay. Now there are many ways we do this. I'll teach you 2 approaches to attempt to use in answering stakeholder questions, right? But always draw the diagram. Okay. Then you say from the diagram above, or after it, you said the diagram is provided below. Always give evidence. So problematic stakeholders. Then when he's high and he highly opposes you, he is what? An antagonistic stakeholder. Okay. And how would you know whether they support or oppose you? The case will tell you. That's why I told you, you always start with what? What have you told me? So like last night, they said the community didn't allow these real estate companies to come and set up what? Their own houses. That one was significantly telling you that these people were what? Opposing you. And also, they were low, right, of importance to the organization. That means they become problematic. And problematic stakeholders can what? What's the word? Provoke antagonistic ones. In this case, something like government, right? That you want to destroy wildlife. Government can come, EPA can come and trouble you. So one stakeholder can agitate another stakeholder, which will move them. So sometimes there are movements on the stakeholder plot or the stakeholder analysis. Okay, and these things are very important. Okay, so we've seen this one. Now, when the stakeholders support you, right, but their importance is low, we call them low priority stakeholders, right? So these ones have low priority, though they are concerned about. Example is like your employees, right? Your employees support you. I'm just talking about maybe the foreman or the supervisor or the security man, right? The security man does not have so much importance to you, but he supports everything that you do, making him low priority. Or some students in the community who support you, the media, right? But then we have those who are supporters. They strongly support you and their importance is high, meaning they control, like your key customer, right? So if you have a key customer who buys about 90% of your supplies, what is his importance position? Very important or less important?
Very important.
Very important. But does he support you? If this customer is considerate, sometimes can even pay you in advance. This tells you that this guy supports your operations, right? Doesn't really ask for discounts. He's always payment. He pays on time and all that. This means that this guy gives you support, right? And he's of high importance. So these people, we call them supporters, right? And supporters, what you do is that you try to maintain the goodwill, because if you tarnish it, you can easily go out of business. Does that make sense? So what are the 2 approaches that we use to answer stakeholder questions, right? So I've given you the overall strategy, right? But there are 2 ways. So approach 1. Approach 1 is where we try to, go this way. So this is where you take the stakeholders and talk about them. So maybe if I want to do it this way, if I draw my diagram, right? I know that here is antagonistic also. So with this one, what I'm going to do is that the antagonistic, I say antagonistic, I've turned the diagram. If I want to go this way, then I'll do it importance and position here. But let's say this one was the problematic, right? Based on what we did. So problematic. So with problematic stakeholders, I can decide to take maybe the local community. So you see, I list them in the diagram. Maybe the students giving you maybe the EPA. Are you getting it? Or something. So you list them antagonistic. Maybe the managing director, the production manager. I'm just giving an example, right? And maybe the supplier at BT Supplies, right? You see how you do it. So this one you list it. Then when you finish listing them, you are now going to take them one by one. So here you are now going to take some particular stakeholders, like what? The important ones, the managing director. Then you now tell us what they have told you. The managing director will not agree, meaning that the managing director is what? An antagonistic stakeholder. You come and talk about his expectations from the company, what he needs. Then you come and talk about, since he's antagonistic, that means he has high what? Importance and what? High position, right? Then you now come and tell us the strategies to manage this guy, which is probably to what? Reach a compromise with him, right? Try to compromise. And there are many ways you can try to reach a compromise with such a person, right? So this one, you take at least one from each of them and say that these are other ones, right? These are others that we can also use this strategy to manage. Okay, that is one approach. So that one, you use the headings. You take the stakeholders one by one. And there's another approach where if you take problematic, right? So this approach 2. So approach 2, you put down the diagram, all right, but you group them according to their groupings in the scenario. I get it. So when you talk about problematic, you are going to discuss who they are. So who are problematic stakeholders? So you tell us who they are, and also tell us from the case who are problematic, right? So you list them, that the local community is one, the students are one, and also the media is one. Okay, then you now come and talk about what most of them expect, the expectations. Okay, then finally, what is the strategy for managing them? So if you select strategy, that means the strategy is going for all of them. Okay, then you move to the next one, which is antagonistic. So there are 2 approaches for dealing with stakeholders, right? Either you go with taking the stakeholders one by one, or you go with taking a huge category, maybe problematic. Then you tell us problematic. These are the ones who are problematic in the case. This is who problematic stakeholders are. This is how we deal with them, or this is how we try to solve their problem, right? And this also applies to the power interest matrix, right? It's the same thing. The interpretation is still the same, right? So with that one, you just do the same style. Are we okay? Just try to do the same style and everything will work out fine. Please, is that okay?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
So with that one, the same way, after you draw the diagram, you can put the stakeholders that fall into those categories inside, right? So the keep satisfied stakeholders, we know these people, we have to, comply with their laws and regulations, like government, right? They have high power, but they have low interest in your business. So how can you do this? You can consult them often, talk to environmental analysts. You can increase their interest. They can be hindrance to your new ideas or strategic choices. So comply with laws and regulations. They're your key players. What's the strategy to manage them? You can manage them closely, involve them in decision making, engage regularly, and build a strong relationship with them. Those who are low priority, you can monitor them only. You don't engage with them, but general occasional communication, that is those who are low priority or minimal effort, right? As we call them. Then those who are keep informed, like your staff, you just keep them informed. They have high interest but low power. You utilize the high interest by engaging in decisions, like an open door policy. You consult in their areas of expertise and interest. Okay, so these are good strategies. So if you are able to do this in exam, tell me the gospel truth. Do you think somebody will fail you? Or no, be honest.
No.
No, nobody will fail you because you are talking like a subject expert. And anytime you answer questions like a subject expert, you have a chance of passing and passing well. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so that was it for internal and external analysis. Who has a question for me? We'll dive more into detail. I think the pre-scene will come somewhere Monday. Yeah, it will come on Monday. So from Monday, that one will diagnose the case into detail and apply all the necessary models. But for now, just understand how to pass. Very important, right? Okay. So that is it. So that was about environmental analysis, internal, external, and position appraisal, right? And stakeholders. And I talked a bit about financial appraisal too, didn't I? The ratios and how to go about them and all that stuff. Okay. So I think the analysis part is done. Now we go to, still under business strategy, we go to strategic models, application of strategic models. We are going to strategic choices, okay? An area which is very broad, okay? So as a business, right? When you start your journey, as a business, when you start your journey, okay, you must first, your strategic journey, that's the word I want to use. Your strategic journey, okay? There's something you must do. One, ask yourself, where are we now? Okay, where are we now? So where are we now tells you where you are standing. And that's what we call the position, right? Your position analysis. And that is what ends with the SWOT, right? So where are we now? Meaning know your strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. Know your financial performance and your financial position to tell you where you are standing now as well. So if you know where you are now, for now, where am I? Maybe I'm in Accra. Okay. The next question is, where do we want to go? Okay. So where do we want to go? So where do we want to go means that you want to go to some places, right? You want to go to some place, and you wanting to go to some place is what we call your strategic choice, right? Or let's call it strategic options. Okay, and choice. Where do I want to go? I want to go with what? Kumasi, right? I want to either go to Kumasi, or I want to go to Takrade. Are you getting it? Or I want to go to maybe northern region, right? Now, these are all options available to me, true or false? These are all options available to me, true or false?
True.
But I should make the right choice, true or false? I should be able to make the right choice that one, my resources can be able to support that travel, right? Assuming the fare from Accra to Kumasi is 150 cedis, to Takrade is maybe 180 cedis, to the northern region is 200 cedis, and I only have, let's say, 160 cedis in my disposal, right? Based on my position appraisal, right? This is the resource that I have. And these are the options available. Which one do you think I can pursue? Looking at all of them, which one do you think I can pursue? Meaning Kumasi. I can only pursue Kumasi, right? Meaning that Kumasi meets suitability. It is suitable. It is feasible. That means you have the resource to carry it out, and it is acceptable by the stakeholders. So thereby, you have a lot of options available to you, but it's not every option which meets your what? Your choice. Does it make sense? So this thing you are doing, you do it every day in life, but they've just put it into a model for you. Okay, which looks so strange. Yes, it's something you do. Anytime you want to travel, you look at where you are standing, look at where you want to go, or where you actually want to go, right? There are so many options. But even when you are coming to classes, is it all assuming you have to choose some courses, maybe you only have to do 2 courses. So to me. Don't you look at what your strength can what you can do? True or false? So it's the same thing you are doing, right? So look at where we are now. That's the position appraisal, the environmental analysis, internal analysis, ending with the SWOT, right? Where do you want to go? Your strategic options and choice. And finally, how do we get there? So the how do we get there is what should I do? What actions should be taken, right? What actions should be taken to get there? So this is what we call strategic implementation, right? And this strategic implementation is putting people to work. And here, the most important things are, do we have the appropriate structure? So you're looking at organizational structure. Do we have the organizational structure? So sometimes we call it what? The appropriate configuration to make sure we get there. 2, do we have the necessary staff and resourcing requirements? Okay. Do we have enough what? Finance. So once you look at your organizational structure, the next thing you have to look at, how would we manage the change that it takes for us to get there? So we have organizational change management. Are you getting it? Are you getting it? How do we ensure we have the most appropriate culture? So we have organizational culture management. How do we ensure whether we have actually got there? We have performance management. How do we ensure we have the necessary resources, staff, proper innovation, all that? We have functional what? Strategies. Okay. And here you'll be looking at things like R&D, you'll be looking at things like marketing, you'll be looking at things like operations management, that's production. You'll be looking at things like human resource management, right? You'll be looking at things like IT, you'll be looking at things like finance, right? And all these things tell us how to get there, okay? And then finally, I can put here what? Okay, how do we get there if we are not able to manage risk? We should be able to manage our risk effectively. So risk management is part of this. Now, your syllabus consolidates all these areas and calls it business plans. Okay? And these areas are most likely a lot of theories here. So my advice to all my students all the time is that at least just be strong in this area, right? That's all. Did you get it? So these are the 3 questions you always ask yourself. Where are we now? So always when you get a case study, actually, you can look at where the question is coming from, whether it's coming from the where are we now side, or it's coming from where do we want to go, or it's coming from how do we get there, right? That's strategy in action. So it starts with analysis of position, comes to choice, then comes to what? Implementation. Makes sense. So we are finished with where do we want to go. The next thing is what? Strategic choices, right? And then to start with strategic choices, I'll first teach you how to deal with strategic choice questions, right? So how do we deal with strategic choice questions? So for strategic choice questions, the first thing you have to ask yourself is that what kind of question are they asking me? And there are various approaches that the examiner can ask you. And this doesn't only apply to only strategic case study. Anything that has a case study, okay, in it, involving strategy, most of the time, these things are important, right? Yeah. So what you are talking about pros and cons, right? So they can ask you a question where most questions are always about pros and cons. If the question says, okay, should they do market development? Should they do product development? Should they pursue a growth strategy? Should they do this, right? Always, if there are options, remember, there are strategic options. Always there are options. So all you have to do is weigh the options by using the advantages and disadvantages, right? A company who wants to choose between what? Market penetration and market development. Weigh the options, right? The pros and the cons. This is the best way questions always come. So this is the question type 1, right? This is the first question type. The second question type is where they assess the strategies based on suitability, feasibility, and acceptability. So they will tell you that, oh, should the company pursue this strategy? It should pursue it. So you have to assess whether it's suitable, it is feasible, and it is acceptable by the stakeholders. Do you understand? So these are the 2. There are others, right? But for ICA purposes, these are the 2 ways we can assess strategic choice questions. Okay, so just have this in mind that anytime a question is going to come on strategic choice, you're either going to use the pros and cons approach, or you are going to use the suitability, feasibility, acceptability approach. Let me see if I can get some particular exam questions around this area. Let me see if I can get some particular questions around this area to prove to you that that's always how the questions come, right? So that you are prepared. So from Monday, at least you have a general overview on how to deal with case studies yourself. Okay, so let's see. Let me just expand that. Start with the very first one. If you can see my screen, you tell me. So I start with April 2022. Let's just go to the questions directly. I just want the questions. It was on HPC. Okay, so see, the first question, using two matrices of approach to stakeholder mapping, discuss and show with diagrams. Even if they didn't ask the diagrams, what was the strategy I told you to apply?
So read the diagram.
You still have to produce a diagram, right? Because it's part of your strategy. So they said use the two matrices, right? And I hope you can, 10 marks. Okay. Using PESTEL, discuss business environment that appears to be either favorable or unfavorable, meaning they're asking for opportunities and threats. Some questions may only focus on what? Unfavorable parts or favorability, right? Now, I'm looking for a question that they didn't bring that sort of question this night. I'm looking for a question where you have to analyze pros and cons. So most questions always use that approach, right? Either pros and cons or suitability, feasibility, acceptability. Mainsberg 5 blocks, 6 organizational configuration. You see this place pops up a lot. Look, write a report detailing the advantages of an acquisition and mergers method of growth instead of internal development. So you see this type of questions, that is the strategic choice type of questions, right? This is under methods of development. You see, you are comparing and contrasting. So pros and cons. Makes sense. Have you seen that question can come in this form? So this is the first type of questions that strategic choice questions come. So the pros and then the cons, right? So advantages, disadvantages. So you are going to select this one. Look at the advantages over that other one, not so. And look at this one. Look at the advantages over that other one. Then look at the disadvantages. Then you can get what? Your 10 marks. But it should be in line with the case. Always, this is how we do this kind of questions, right? I hope by now you are starting to learn the different type of questions and how to approach them. Are we learning something?
Yes, bro.
Yes,
Okay, so
please.
those are the first type of questions that we have. And with this type of questions, please, when you are doing it, something like an acquisition and merger, apart from just looking at the pros and the cons, you must always search the case to see if there's any further information that can help you choose one of them over the other. For instance, if I do not have enough cash, then I cannot pursue internal development. But however, I can do acquisition and merger. So you see how I link the financial statement to this strategy. So you are telling me, okay, the advantages of acquisition and merger against internal development. But I go and check the cash position. I do not have enough cash. Internal development requires more cash, right, than mergers and acquisition because I can do share exchange. Does that make sense? No. So in that case, yes, though you are looking at the advantages and disadvantages, but looking at the company in question, it does not have enough cash. Maybe it has overdraft. What money is it going to use to pursue the internal development if he wants to pursue it this year? So it is better. So your conclusion, they say conclude the report, right? So it is better the company should pursue what? Acquisition and merger strategy over the internal development. And this is because the company's cash position seemed to have reduced from what? 20% last year to negative 0.5%, signifying that the company does not have enough resources to pursue the internal development strategy. Recommendations. Management should look for alternative sources of finance, such as, then you start, equity raising, or maybe listing on the stock exchange. Does the company have the better position to do that? No. If not, what are other sources of finance that they can use to pursue internal development if they choose to do so? Yes, I'm not be like, wow, this guy knows his whereabouts. Of course, right? And you cannot just get this. You need a right guide and you need to practice. If you don't practice, forget it. I hope you are learning something.
Yes, bro.
So you see, GRN has come here again. Appraisal. Lewis model for change. You see, change management has also come. So look at one diet. You have change management, 10 marks. You have organizational configuration, 10 marks. 6 different organizational configurations, 10 marks again. That should tell you how important that area is, right? So if you want to pass case study, I told you, right? I wrote on the diagram, the flyer, business plans, which is strategy implementation, right? 2, strategy, business strategy, and then corporate governance. If you focus on these areas, right, there's always a chance that you cross your 50%. I'm not saying that you don't learn the other areas, so you learn, but this is the areas that have the majority of what? Models to learn, okay? Most of the models are centered around these areas. So I see people struggle, hey, I must master investment appraisal. I must master risk, Forex risk. Hey, I don't know lease or buy. I don't see those areas that you are struggling, you are wasting your time on, only cover 20 marks or at least 25. But these areas put together, these areas put together, we have 30, we have 20, and we have 5. This one could be more than 5 because corporate governance is spread out. So sometimes you could say this is 10, right? So see, what do we have? If we add all, is it not about 60? Is it not about 60? And strategy, we can even add analysis to it. So if analysis is part, then this area is 30 marks. So analysis and choice. So look, 30 plus 30 plus 10. How many marks is there? How many marks is there?
Prof, 70.
70. And you haven't even tackled finance. And there's no way finance will come and you cannot also do it. Finance, if you know, you know. If you don't know, you don't know. Do you get it? So it tells you that as a serious student, if you master these areas, there's no way you will go to case study exam and become a failure. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, please.
Okay, that is right. Sure. Okay, then. I think that was the first type of questions. The next one was suitability, feasibility, acceptability. Let's see if that kind of question came. No, it's the same thing. The same thing we looked at. Let's see. December 2022. I just want to show you the different kinds of strategic choice questions. Let's see. If suitability, feasibility, acceptability. The questions look long. They look long, yes, but you must know when to apply what model, right? We talked about this. I'm coming. You see, financial statement is inside. That means that there's a need to use this to do SWOT, link it to environmental analysis of some sort, right? That's why they give you environmental, they give you this information. This kind of information. Let's see. Identify and explain new organizational structure, 6 marks. 2 main advantages that you gain by adopting the structure. See, structure, 10 marks. Say Porter's model for national competitive advantage. You see Porter's diamond is coming here again. See agency conflicts. Job, CEO. TCWL plans to expand to Kenya and South Africa to produce for Eastern and Southern Africa markets respectively. This move is largely influenced by the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, right, which was launched in July 2020. The strategic direction would require substantial investment to upgrade production facilities to meet the new market demand. Using Johnson's and Scholes suitability, feasibility, and acceptability model, evaluate the non-financial factors. So you see here, it's still coming from strategic choice, but where is their focus? Where is their focus? Are they coming with pros and cons, or they are coming with SFA?
SFA.
They are using SFA, right? So you see how the questions are framed. It's like you are in the mind of the examiner. See question that they came to add. 4 levers of change, 6 marks. 4 benefits of external change agent, 4 marks. You see organizational culture. We saw organizational structure at the top, right? Where is it? The new structure, 10 marks. We came to see change management here. 10 marks again. We came to see analysis, which is Porter's diamond. And we also came to see what? The suitability, feasibility, acceptability. So if you look at it well, assess the marks very well. Let's go up, right? This one is under strategy implementation, right? Which is business plan. No be so. Okay. Let's go down. So business plan, we've seen our first 10 marks. Let's just consolidate, assuming you're a student. Then we have what? 10 marks from here, which is strategy analysis. How many marks do we have so far? How many marks do we have so far? 20, right? Okay, skip that one. Then we have this one, suitability, feasibility, acceptability, 10 marks. How many marks do we have so far? 30, right?
30.
Then levers of change, another 10. How many marks do we have so far?
40.
40 marks. This one, if you had specialized, you can make this 40 marks without sweat, right? Then the rest, you now come and sweat small. You get it? So recommend and explain appropriate strategies that they should adopt for each product. So this is where they expect you to apply a specific model. So if you do not know the model, you cannot make it. Makes sense. But then if you are a very smart student, you know that these models share what? Relationships with other models. Do you understand? So even if you are not so sure, you know at least the strategies are similar. So you can use that model that you know and use the strategies in there to see if you will get the mark. And sometimes, at least, if this thing is 10 marks, you can get some 5. Because shell directional policy is similar to BCG and the GE matrix. So if you know either of them and this question came, you can apply it strategically to get some marks. Though it looks like deviation, but it's better than nothing. At least the strategies like hold, grow, invest, maintain, right? They are still the same strategies there, which means that you stand a chance of making it rather than leaving it blank, right? Exam is strategy. I keep telling you, exam is strategy. Does that make sense? So recommend and explain the appropriate strategy or strategies. So you realize that this is what do you think type of questions, right? I told you that what do you think type of questions will mostly come with recommend, suggest. Does that make sense?
Yes, bro.
Okay. So with that being said, are we okay? So we've seen the different kinds of questions that they can ask us. So ICA has
Good.
Yes, boss. If somebody was asking something. So there are 4 areas, okay, of successful strategy development. And always questions come from either of these 4 areas, right? So 1, we have what we call the strategic direction area, okay, strategic direction. This is where we have our corporate strategies, where we have our portfolio management, and where we have things like international strategies and corporate parenting, right? Then the second area is competitive advantage. So competitive advantage is where you have the generic strategies, okay, where you have the strategy clock, where you have the principles of strategic positioning, where you have lock-in strategies, where you have hyper competition, right? See, these are the main areas the ICA book talks about, and collaboration, right? To compete in the market. So this area. Then the next area is what we call growth vector, okay? So growth vector is your ANSOPs matrix, right? Your growth strategies. So these ones are made up of intensification strategies, diversification strategies, and other strategies such as what we call consolidation, corrective strategies, and then withdrawal strategies, right? So these ones are other strategies. By intensification, we have market penetration, market development, and product development. Then we have diversification, which may be concentric or related diversification, or conglomerate or unrelated diversification, right? Then the last area of strategy is synergy, right? Working together with other people. So this is where you are looking at what? Either growing internally, internal development, that's methods of development, or going with what? External development. So external development is where you look at whether you're going with what? Joint development. That is what? Strategic alliances. Or where you are going with what? Mergers and acquisition strategy, right? So anytime a business wants to grow, it's either growing with its own resources, I get it, and then either he grows with someone. So grow on your own or grow with someone. And growing on your own, there are some crises or some problems you face. And that brings us to a model which we call Greener's growth model, right? So if you want to grow on your own, what are the crises that you are going to face, right? And this is it. So if we ask for strategy development in your exam, this is as far as I see it can go. Okay? Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so there are other models, but ICA will always focus on this one. So if you're a student, why not use these few weeks to master these things? If you master them, trust me, you will go in there and you will see the people you say this is child's play. I'm telling you. The reason why people fail is that they are focusing on the wrong things. Okay then. Are we okay? So as part of this, let me just add one area. Usually evaluation is part of implementation, performance appraisal, evaluating whether a strategy has been, but we can add it here, right? Choice. So choice, these are options. Remember, these are options. But there's also choice, right? And choice, I told you can use SFA, okay? You can even use performance to assess whether the strategy has been achieved. You can even use the TOS analysis, right? There are various ways. You can even use enforced choice. I'll just give you the areas ICA can ask you. Ethics. Look at the ethical implication of a strategy you should choose. If it's ethical, you choose it. If it's unethical, you leave it. Then finally, we can look at what did I want to look at? I just forgot it. Learning organization, right? So learning organization by Bergboin and those other guys, right? So these are areas that ICA has included, and these areas can pop up at any time. So though there are 4 areas, I've just added choice, right? These are the things that you need to know here, okay? So once the pre-scene is out, I'm going to diagnose all these areas. We'll go through them step by step and link all of them to the case so that you can prepare very, very well, okay? Now, that was about how to deal with strategic choice questions, okay? Now, we come to the business plan area. So when it comes to business plans, I break it into one. This is strategy implementation actually, right? This implementation. So we finish with analysis, we finish with choice, this implementation. So for strategy implementation, we will start with what? Appropriate structure. So organizational what? Configuration, right? Organizational configuration. And then organizational structure is very broad, right? I have a video on my YouTube channel. So visit Prof's Training Solutions on YouTube. Okay, that covers everything you need to know about organizational structure, everything from A to Z for your exam, right? Please make sure you watch that video to supplement this. Then we have what? Enabling change. You need to enable change, right? That's change management and all the models. This is where a lot of models are, right? Like Rosabeth Moscanta model for change adept management. Lewin has so many models. He has the prescriptive change strategy, unfreeze, change, refreeze. he has the force field model, right? Driving forces of change. So here, if I'm to look at the models, there's Lewin, right? And Lewin alone has what? The force field analysis. Okay, force field analysis. Lewin has the prescriptive change, or the 3-step change, right? Which is unfreeze, change, and refreeze, or unfreeze, movement, and refreeze, right? The 3-step change model, right? We have Gemini 4R. Okay, we have Gemini 4R. We have Rosabeth Moscanta. Rosabeth Moscanta on change and depth management, which you can still use to answer levers of change, because these things you see are also levers of change, right? Then they can ask you a question on triggers of change. Okay, what things can spot? Anytime you hear triggers of change, you can use PESTEL to identify triggers of change. Anything that is changing in the external environment. You can also use what? Internal environment, that is SWOT analysis. You can also use SWOT analysis to identify internal triggers of change. So everything is technique, right? Force field analysis, Gemini 4R, triggers of change. They can ask you for levers of change. So this area, there are a lot of theory and a lot of material. Levers of change. They can ask you about responsibility. So who is a change manager? Who is a change leader? Who is a change sponsor? Okay, so these ones are all areas they can ask you questions on, and they can ask you for the types of change. Okay, so these are all the necessary questions that can be asked in this area. Okay, so when you know this like this, then you know that there's no way you are going in to go and fail. Does that make sense? When it comes to organizational structure, you can look at the generic types of structure, right? So are you going for an entrepreneurial structure? Are you going for what? A functional organization? Are you going for geographical? Are you going for what? Matrix? Are you going for divisional? Are you getting? So all of them, all you have to know is the pros and cons, right? How they look like, the features, and then you look at the pros and cons for this type of organizational structure. So whether it's a simple structure, a functional structure, a geographic structure, and then what? A matrix structure, right? Or a conglomerate structure. There are so many of them. Then after knowing the generic types, you have to know what? The flat organization versus the tall organization, right? And this depends on 2 criteria, okay? As I told you, for change and then organizational structure, I have full video, okay, on the YouTube channel, together with how to answer strategic management, strategic choice questions and all that. I have so many videos on there. So you can just go and make sure you watch them to cover the aspect of change and then organizational structure. And I also have organizational culture there, right? So these areas, if you know them, at least you stand a chance of passing. So flat and tall organizations depend on something we call span of control, and then scalar chain, right? So the span of control is the number of subordinates under a superior. And then scalar chain is the number of hierarchies. So assuming I have this, right? I have this organization with the CEO on top. Then there's a manager, right? And then under the manager, there are 2 staff. And under this staff, there's another staff, right? Under this one, too, there's another. Under this one, there's another. Under this one, there's another, right? Now, you see that this is a tall organization. It means that what? It has what? A narrow span of control, right? You could see only few subordinates under one head. Narrow span of control. But let's say we have what? The boss here, and then we have so many staff under, right? These are all staff. This one, you can see that there are less number of hierarchies. So with a tall organization, the hierarchies are small, meaning that they have a narrow, they have a narrow span of control, but a wider scalar chain. Scalar chain is the number of levels, right? So this one, you see the number of levels are more, but the wideness of the level is low. So when you have a narrow scalar chain, and a wider or taller what? Span of control, you have a tall organization structure. And then when you have a wider scalar chain, meaning what? You have what? Oh, this one should be flat, sorry. Because when there's a wide span of control, meaning so many employees under you, but the hierarchies are narrow, it's a flat, wide organizational structure, right? But when you have a wider scalar chain, meaning a lot of hierarchies, but then you have what? A narrow span of control. That is what? Only few employees under one head. That means you have a tall organizational structure, okay? So they can ask you questions around this. Then another area they can ask you questions around is internal and external relationships, right? So internal and external relationships, particular questions under here, it's mostly about what? Centralization versus decentralization, right? So these are the questions that I see mostly ask you questions on. Then things like outsourcing versus offshoring, right? What's outsourcing? What is offshoring? Okay, so we have internal collaborations, right? So you can have some collaborations with other organizations. Apart from that, they can ask you a question on what? Team management. So like managing virtual teams and network organizations, right? Okay, so these are internal and external relationships. Especially they can ask you a question on outsourcing advantages. And here it's all about pros and cons, right? You see almost around all these areas is pros and cons. So should a company choose decentralization over centralization? Pros and cons. Then the final one is the contingent approach to organizational structure, right? So the contingent approach, there are two models which I want you to master. One is the Benz and Stalker, okay, theory on organizational structure. And then you need McKinsey's, learn McKinsey's 7S framework. And then Mintzberg structure. So Mintzberg has two structures, right? The organizational building blocks. And then the 6 organizational configurations. Okay. So if you know these models, there's no way you are going into thinking. Okay. So this is organizational structure and culture, structure and change, right? The next area is about culture. When it comes to culture, you are looking at the culture types, okay, by Charles Handley. Though there's another model, but ICA will not ever examine it. That is strategic cultures by Miles and Snow. Okay. Whether you are defenders, analyzers, or prospectors, which is by Miles and Snow. Actually, the strategic models, ICA does not even cover a lot. There are a lot of them. Then you have the culture web, which is the most important aspect of culture management in your exam. So the culture web will tell you to analyze the culture of an organization using the culture web. And then you have Edgar Schein on culture. You have Edgar Schein on culture. And here he analyzes it from 3 perspectives, right? The outer skin, the inner layer, and then the heart of the organization, right? Which is just like the culture web. But then here he looks at the ethical implications as well. Okay, so these are the main models. Then influences on culture, right? What things influence culture, or the factors that determine how the culture of an organization works. Like the founder can affect your culture, the way your office layout is, your environment, the way you do your things, all these things, right? So when it comes to culture, these are the areas. These are the areas for structure, and those are the areas for what? Change. Okay. The next area under this umbrella, performance in your exam. Performance in your exam, we have the balance scorecard. And the balance scorecard is one model that can always be examined. So this one, you can say it's always what? Constant. Every time, every data can be examined. The next is the building block model. So the performance building blocks only work for service organizations, right? So if a service organization comes, always expect this model to pop up. Then 3 is a manufacturing entity, right? This is for the performance pyramid. This one should work with manufacturing companies. So if a manufacturing company comes, do not hesitate to learn and apply this model, because most of the time they ask you about it. Is that okay? Then I'll add other things to this one, which is benchmarking, right? know about benchmarking, and also know about CSFs and KPI analysis, right? CSS and KPI analysis. So these areas cover the 4 months. Then the last area around this will be your functional strategies, right? The functional strategies. So these areas, when you look at the ICA book, it's only the IT which takes a lot of time, right? It takes a lot. So at least make sure that you take 1 week, okay, just 1 week, and finish these areas. So here you have R&D. R&D is about 1.5 page. Okay, you have HR, you have marketing. Marketing is less than 1 page, right? They just talk about the 4 P's. Operations too, about 1.5 page. Then you have finance, which can take about 4 pages, right? These are the ones that you need to know. Then IT will take at least, you can use some 2 days to finish it. These areas, make sure you don't go to the exam hall without them, because you will fail. Me, I'll tell you the truth. If you go to the exam hall without these areas, especially IT now, because now IT has been integrated into the strategy syllabus, into all the syllabuses. So it tells you that this becomes an important area you cannot ignore. Do you understand? Clear? Clear.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the last area is risk management. The last area is risk management. So with risk management, what do you need? You must learn how to identify risk, right? So risk identification. So when it comes to risk identification, what are they expecting from you? You can identify risk using your normal PESTEL, environmental analysis, SWOT, and whatever way, right? They are risk identification tools. Or you can identify risk based on the 10 book classification. So ICA has asked questions like that before, okay? Where they ask you to analyze risk based on the 10 book classification. It means that if you don't know the 10 book classification for risk, you will fail. Because if you use this one, yes, some of them will fall in, but if you don't classify based on environmental and safety risk, financial risk, liquidity risk, health and safety risk, are you getting it? Those kind of risks, and you go and use this approach, you will fail. So ICA sometimes can be specific. Use 10 book classification for risk, right? After you identify risk, you need to know risk evaluation. I get a risk evaluation methodologies, right? No risk evaluation methodologies. Then learn risk mitigation. I get it as well. So there are some models you need to know here, like TARA, learning how to use TARA, learning how to use the risk dashboard. I'm just giving you, so everything I write, take it serious. TARA, the risk dashboard, learning how to use the 40 approach is the same as TARA. So TARA works like this, where you're looking at the risk matrix, right? So you're looking at the impact of the risk and then the probability of the risk happening, right? The likelihood. So you are saying that, okay, it could be high or it could be low, low or high, low or high, right? High, low. So we are saying that, okay, if the chance that a risk will happen is low, and then its impact will not be a heavy blow, you accept the risk for what it is, right? So this is how TARA works. You accept it. So TARA, accept, right? Now, if a risk, the probability that it will happen is low, right? But it will suffer, the company will suffer a heavy blow from it. Then we can transfer the risk, right? We can transfer the risk because the chance that it will happen is low. So insurance companies can help. So here, transferring may also involve risk sharing, okay? Sharing risk with other people through things like joint ventures, mergers and acquisitions, right? These are ways you can transfer risks. The same way, if the impact of the risk is what? Low, but then the chance that the risk will happen is high, we can put effective internal controls there to manage this risk. So here, we do risk what? Reduction strategy, right? Reduce the risk. Are you getting it? This is where we do staff training. We put in what internal controls and all that. Now, if the risk is very high, the probability of the risk is high, impact is high, then we avoid the risk altogether. This is where we avoid, right? So the TARA works like this: transfer, avoid, reduce, accept. If you are not using TARA, you are using the 4T approach, it means that accept will use tolerate, and that 4T accept is tolerate, right? Avoid means terminate. Okay, and reduce means to treat the risk. So with the 4T approach, it is what? Transfer the risk, treat the risk, tolerate the risk, that means accept it, and what? Terminate the risk, which means avoid it. If you are looking at TARA, transfer, no, so then this one is what? Reduce. This one is accept. And this one is what? Avoid, right? They are the same, but different perspectives, right? So you look at TARA, you look at the risk dashboard, then you look at risk diversification strategies, okay? So risk mitigation strategy. So under risk mitigation, you are looking at things like what? Hedging, what it means, diversification, what it means, risk sharing, what it means, risk transfer, what it means, right? So when it comes to risk, these are the things you need to look out for. And as part of that, there's something we call the enterprise risk management framework, right? Whether you like it or not, this thing mostly pops up because this is the main theme in your exam. So yeah, you have two models that you have to look out for. So you have the COSO model and you have ISO 31000, right? This one pops up often. ISO 31000. So ISO 31000 talks about the risk architecture and all that. They are all examples of enterprise risk management frameworks, okay? So apart from these ones, the last area is the terms in risk management. So there are some terms in risk management you must know. And this one can come for some few marks, between 5 to 8 marks, where you define terms. Like when they talk about risk appetite, what is it? When they talk about risk embedding, what is it? Risk embedding pops up a lot in your IC exam. When we talk about the roles and responsibilities in risk management as part of risk mitigation and evaluation, the role of the board of directors, the role of the risk committee, the role of the audit committee in managing risk, right? All these things are areas under terms in risk management that you have to understand, right? When we talk about correlated and uncorrelated risk, when we talk about speculative risks, okay? So these ones are areas that at least they are theory that you need to know. They are theories in risk management. So when you know these things, then my brother, you are fine. You are very fine. Any questions so far? So that was about the areas around strategy implementation. Any question? Any question? Any question? So with that said, the concluding part of that area is the business plan. Okay, and business plan in the exam, it can come as theory or practical, where they can ask you, what is the business plan for this organization? What is the purpose of organization ABC adopted a business plan, right? When do we need a business plan? Are you getting it? What are the elements of a business plan? They can ask you, right? So you should be ready to prepare the business plan just in case it is asked in the case, right? Although business plan came in November 2020, it will still be examined from the perspective of raising capital to support growth, right? Every information requires to do a business plan. I get that requires you to do a business plan is likely provided in a pre-sim material, and I'll encourage students to always try it out. So you get all the industry data, the pestle, all those things. They are mostly in the pre-sim, right? So business plan usually have the executive summary, the business description, like the ownership and history, overall mission and objectives, your products and services. So this one, you can pick all those information from the pre-sim. Then you come and do your business environmental analysis or your industry background. Usually we use Porter's Five Forces, Porter's Diamond, Pestle, and the rest. But what you can do is that you can just focus on Pestle and SWOT as a sample, right? Always, those are the two models I use in my business plan. But if you use that, I think you stand a chance, right? Because mostly this one is linked mostly to the business directly. So I prefer to analyze what the industry or analyze the background of the environment using Porter's 5F. Pestle, sorry. I hope that is okay. Then you look at who are your main competitors. If they were there, you suggest your market size. If you don't know this, don't worry yourself. The operating plans, this is where they can give you some information. If you have them, fine. But this one is what mostly you can get in the case, like the management profile. They'll give you the management team, their names, I get to know what are their backgrounds. Okay. The financial plan, see, all you have to do is if financial statement have given, right? Recopy the key lines for us, like the sales, the cost of sales, the total operating expenses, right? So just show key lines in the income statement, like the revenue, total, statement of financial position and cash flow. Just the summary of those ones are fine. Do you get it? And then you can add some ratios, 1 or 2. Then you should be fine. That's how business plan comes. So most of the time, what they do is that they are going to now ask you for specific portions of the business plan. And that means you need to dive into the case and find those specific portions of the business plan for them, right? So this is a sample business plan for an old question, La Paz Community Hospital. So you see your executive summary tells us what it outlines. So that means what are you talking about? So this business plan outlines operational, marketing, and financial strategy for LCH. Who is LCH? A healthcare provider in Ghana. Okay, the company has identified the need to expand its services to meet the growing demand for healthcare services. The business plan provides an overview of the current business environment, industry background, competitor analysis, as well as operating and marketing plans. The financial plan outlines the projected revenue and expenses for the next 3 years. Very nice executive summary. Don't you see? I hope you can start adopting this. I hope we can start adopting this. Can we? Did you get a start?
Yes, Prof.
Yes.
So,
Prof.
yes, boss. Are we okay? So, once we are done with that, the next thing is the business description. So, what does the company do? So, I'm just giving you a framework. What does the company do? What is its services, right? When has it been in operation for, like the history, right? And what does it offer? What value does it offer? So, look, healthcare provider offers a range of services, including primary care, specialist care, diagnostic services. The company has been in operation for over 5 years and has built a reputation for delivering high-quality healthcare services to its clients. The company is looking to expand its services to meet the growing demand for healthcare services. Nicely said. It doesn't have to be the same, but at least talk about what it does. Then your environmental analysis, right? So you see business environment analysis, nicely headed. It's characterized what? The business environment in Ghana from the case is characterized by a growing demand for healthcare services. The government has made efforts to improve healthcare delivery by investing in healthcare infrastructure and improving access to healthcare services. And all this is in the case. It's like you are summarizing the whole case, the briefing. However, there's still a significant gap between the demand for healthcare and the available resources. This presents an opportunity for LCA to expand its services and meet the growing demand for healthcare services. Are we okay? Then the industry background. Okay, then you come and talk about your pestle. I get it. Even if you list the pestle factors, no problem. You don't have to explain, right? You can list them. The SWOT you can just list like I have done. Then your competitor analysis. If there were competitors, you list them. Then operating plans, the management summary, you list the management team and their experiences that they have. Some questions will tell you this guy has an MBA here. He worked with this company. They are all clues that can help you, right? Then your financial plan. So you list it. So if balance sheet and P&L have been copied, don't copy the total, copy the summaries like sales. Then you say as provided in the appendix, right? Then you put the final figure there. Cost of sales, gross profit, operating profit, balance sheet. Then you list total assets, total liabilities. Then that becomes your financial plan. right? Everything has been provided in the case already. So you have a chance, but when people see business plans, they don't know where to start. But I hope you've learned something. I hope you've learned something.
Yes, please.
So that was it. Now we move to the last area. Then we say goodbye. I wait to see you all in the pre-scene analysis, which I'll start. I think we are starting the intervention on Monday, right? Yeah. So on Monday, I think the pre-scene will come. And then we'll start diving deep into the pre-scene, cover all areas. I want to make sure that before you sit the paper, you are a case study guru. You have coined your own questions and then your questions you are cool. Okay, so that is it. Now, the last area is corporate governance. And corporate governance, I'm not going to talk plenty, but there are some things that you need to know. If you know those things, trust me, there's no way you are going to fail, because in the syllabus itself, the examiner has specifically told us some things that we must know. Okay? The examiner has told us some things that we must what? We must know. And if you know those things, trust me, there's no way you are going to fail. Okay? If you know those things, there's no way you are going to what? There's no way you are going.
No.
There's no way you are going to fail. Do you understand? So if you look at the syllabus itself, right, the examiner makes a clear case in the syllabus. I'm coming. ICA syllabus. Let's see. So let me go to this thing for you to see. Where is it? Corporate governance. See something. Corporate governance, it was specific. This was one of the most specific areas in the syllabus, but still students still go and they can't get it. Look at it carefully. Describe and explain the meaning and theories of corporate governance. So if you go to the exam, theories of corporate governance is on its own. See, let me go to the breakdown. I just want to show you something. Sometimes we ignore the information. Some students have sat the paper, they've never seen the syllabus before. Yeah, they said they are not making it. They don't know why. They've learned everything. Who said you have learned everything? Look well. Corporate governance theories alone, every diet, it comes for 5 marks. Whether you like it or not, something will come on corporate governance theory. Have you learned your corporate governance theories? Importance of corporate governance, the landscape of corporate governance, symptoms of poor corporate governance. Have you learned it? 2, corporate governance in Ghana also comes for 5 marks. OECD principles of corporate governance coming for 5 marks. This thing pops up every night, but I don't know why. You ask students and they're like, it came last night, it won't come again. Are you the examiner? That's what I hate about ICA students. Oh, I'm learning business valuation. Oh, business valuation came last night, so this time capital reduction will come. Are you the examiner? Your role as a student is to know and know it. What is it came last night? Please, if you are that type, stop. Anytime you have things alternating, it doesn't mean that that other side is going to come. Just learn all the two and be fine. So why would you take that risk? That this thing came last night, so this night I'll not even look there. Let's just focus on this one. Are you the examiner? No, you are not. This thing comes every night. Last 2, 3 nights it came. They said, oh, it didn't come last night. They learned it came. Then following that, oh, it will not come. Yet 5 marks will come again. They didn't do it. This night it will come again. So people will not be able to do it. I don't know why. So you see, the syllabus was specific when it comes to corporate governance. So with corporate governance, I don't even believe somebody should score, if it's 20, you should score less than 18, because it is mostly theoretical. If it will be practical, it will mostly ask you what are the symptoms of work governance, or how should we improve the governance that is being undertaken in the organization, right? And specific theoretical areas like the role of an effective chairman. Why should we separate the CEO and then the chairman's roles, right? So these are things that I think if you know them, how will you feel? Why should you feel? Okay, why should you feel? Are we okay? Why should you feel? You shouldn't feel, right? Okay then, so I think literally this is the end of our session today. I don't think we learned that much, but I hope it was worth it.
Yes.
That's what it said. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. I hope now you have had an eye opening when it comes to
God bless you.
that's
Yes,
fine.
Prof.
Yes, boss.
Good evening, sir.
10.7%.
Please, can I have your number so I can contact you, please?
Okay. So my number is 0243 4439. You can equally contact admin on 024 675 2130, right? Our interventions are started on Monday. Interventions are starting on Monday, where we'll do a typical diagnosis of the case, solve the case into details, and then go in and go and pass, right? That's it. So those are the numbers. This is my personal number. Okay. So who has any question for me before we move and say good night? I think it has been a long session. Any question for me? Okay. So is that all? Okay. If that is all, may the Lord be with you and have a beautiful weekend.
Hello, good evening, Prof.
Yes, boss. I think somebody was asking me something.
You be like the person in light drop.
Oh, okay. Okay then. So that brings us to the end of our session. I hope this session was packed with value, and I hope to see you. Please don't forget to go and watch the change, culture, and structure on the YouTube channel and the other areas like the portfolio and those ones. They are all on the channel, right?
All right.
And also help us to keep the good work going. Kindly like and subscribe to. It's very important.
So the YouTube is Prof.
Training Solutions. Prof Training Solutions. This meeting we are having is also live streamed on YouTube at the same time. Right?
Training Solution.
Yeah, Prof's Training Solutions.
Training Solution.
Yeah, Prof's Training Solutions.
Okay.
Yeah. So also let's keep
One
the
way.
subs. No, it's separate. Prof's Training Solutions. And it has all the videos that you need there for you to watch, right? I'll be uploading more. But let's keep the subscriptions going. Kindly like, share, and subscribe, right? To keep the good work going to other people. Are we okay? I want case study to be cocoa chip for everyone, right? So that people will not be scared. Because some people, since case study started, they haven't passed before. And it's so disheartening. May it never be a portion.
I'll make a history by passing for the first.
May it never be your portion.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
May the Lord be with you. Visit Prof's Training
And with your
Solutions.
spirit we draw.
Amen.
So we are all passing first attempt. I'll be waiting for your good news soon. May the Lord be with you.
And
And
with
have
your
a
spirit.